let's continue talking about the situation in Ukraine. Obviously, we're in a position today. This is day 5 of the hostilities between Russia and Ukraine. For those that missed the earlier streams, you can go and watch them. You should be up to speed. The first stream spends an hour setting the historical context as to why this is happening, what's going on with NATO, all the moving parts in the conflict, and then it covers all of the news story. And for the purposes of humor, a bit of levity, we go into terrible American takes, terribly uninformed American media twat takes, and that's always a good way to end the stream. It's quite a heavy topic, but the American blue checks, the Twitterati as I call them, they'll always find a way to make fools of themselves. Let's start. As I said, day 5 of the hostilities. Before we get into sort of talking about where we are in the conflict, probably worth doing just a few little corrections and clarifications. I've been told, again, multiple times these past couple of weeks, stay in your lane. You don't know what you're talking about. I received a lot of messages from Russians that said I was being paid by the Ukraine government for the purposes of disinformation. I got messages from the Ukrainians saying that, I was, by implying there were white supremacist groups in the Ukraine, I was actually being a useful idiot for Russia. So, I've had a few of them as well. Look, I want to clarify a few things, because there was one thing I don't think I was particularly clear on, and that was in my conversation about what is happening in regards to the white supremacist factions, because you'll notice Putin has repeatedly said he's going to denazify the Ukraine. And I think a lot of people have been very dismissive of that, and I pointed out to a part where Peter Hitchens was, again, in my opinion, being a useful idiot by pointing to very fringe groups. And in that moment, I said that those groups were not officially codified in any way by the government and had just taken up arms to fight Russians in the Crimean conflict. Now, that's not entirely true. That's a little bit dismissive of the reality. So I want to correct myself there. Just before we do, the first thing I'm going to do is I will give you a citation. So this is an article in Esquire, which is called "Ukraine Civil War is a Playground for White Supremacists. What Could Go Wrong?" Because some people had said to me specifically, you're wrong about there being white supremacists on the side of the pro-Russian separatists. And that's not true. In fact, a number of white supremacist groups, both mercenary from other sympathetic countries and just in general, gravitated towards that group because some white supremacists have sympathies towards Putin, towards Russia. Some white supremacists don't. It's not a core component of their dogma. And you can see here, this was talking about a very significant number of white extremists, a senior researcher at the Soufan Center and a professor at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies said, the bulk of those foreign fighters are coming from the NEA region, he added, pointing to 800 fighters from Belarus and hundreds more coming from Germany, Georgia, Serbia, and dozens of other countries across Europe. That's in some ways not too different than what you saw with ISIS, Blazakis said, using an acronym for the Islamic State. One of the most prominent destinations for these fighters is the Azov Battalion. We'll talk about that in a moment. A pro-Ukrainian force that analysts say has embraced neo-Nazi views while targeting right-wing or white supremacist groups around the world for recruitment. But pro-Russian forces have also found fertile ground for recruitment. Serbs from Serbia and Bosnia's Republika Srpska have mainly joined pro-Russian separatist militias fighting in eastern Ukraine. Said Adrian Stuni, a foreign policy and security analyst who focuses on the Balkans. Some are affiliated with Serbian ultranationalist paramilitary organizations. Some of them were allegedly hired as mercenaries by the Russian Wagner private military group. And Stuni estimates up to 300 Serbs have fought in Ukraine since 2014, and that about 30 individuals have already been convicted in Serbian courts. So that's a source. It's not the only source, but that is the article that was in my mind at the time of saying that there were white supremacists on both sides, something that some of the Russian people that gave me feedback about the streams absolutely deny. I'm afraid to say that in that separatist region, yes, there were white supremacists fighting on both sides. Now, the key one, the one that's been cited in all of the news, and we didn't really talk about them all that much, And I'm sure you'll have come across terrible, terrible takes and terrible tweets like this one from the Workers' Party of Great Britain. The press, the media, and the political class will have you believe these are plucky Ukrainians taking on the evil Russia. Simple truth is they are fascists that deserve everything that comes their way. No Nazis deserve our support, and shame on the UK government for supporting Ukraine. And that in the middle, next to a swastika and another ultra-nationalist symbol, this is the Azov Battalion symbol. Now, the Azov Battalion symbol does look a little bit like an SS symbol. That apparently is just a happy coincidence for them, I guess. But let's talk a little bit about the Azov Battalion. The Azov Battalion are infamous around the world. They've even been talked about in the American government. There they are there. You can see the logo again. And basically, in 2014, they were a group of volunteers that went down to essentially stop pro-Russian separatists. They were formed out of a football hooligan group, a neo-Nazi football hooligan group. They were all really brutal criminals. They were all very violent individuals, and they got guns and they went and thought, fuck it, let's do war for real. And they rose to notoriety, including things that would probably constitute war crimes in, most kind of civilized assessments. Why have they rose to such notoriety? Well, of course, as you can see from that picture that was being used by the Workers' Party of Great Britain, they make no bones about it. There are members in their group, including a leader that at the time in 2014, I don't think he's the head of the battalion anymore, who make absolutely no bones whatsoever about their ultra-nationalist, white supremacist views. They don't shy away from it. As far as they're concerned, Nazism is a perfectly viable ideology for them. And this has come up time and time again. Now, when this has been challenged, they estimate something like that. Their leader said, actually, only 20% of us are Nazis. The rest are just Nazi adjacent. Is a way to kind of downplay fears about that. But this ended up getting debated in the US Congress, because obviously when you send money to Ukraine for military aid, well, what ended up happening was this group, the Azov Battalion, after the work they did in defending Ukraine, they got brought in sort of as part of the National Guard of Ukraine. Now, the National Guard of Ukraine was created some time ago, but they after tensions with Russia, they expanded it. They were essentially taking on all comers. Any militia groups that distinguished themselves were brought into the fold, and this created the situation of Azov Battalion, who obviously were openly white nationalist. They were part of that expansion. And so money, military aid, was going into the hands of the Azov Special Forces unit. They're not special forces, they are a civilian militia. So the American government actually wanted to put a stop on funding and giving military aid to the National Guard, because they said we cannot fund neo-Nazism anywhere in the world. But then that got overturned after an initial agreement to do that. And so that's where we're at with that. That's the Azov Battalion. Now, obviously, I'm fucking denounce Nazis. They're all scumbags and shithouses. There's no real excuse for this. But it also has been... Zelensky's of Jewish origin. He has never endorsed these individuals, this unit, publicly. It is a complicated, tricky issue. In fact, they did remove the former head of it as a result of the things he was embroiled in. So it's one of those where it's like, when I said they're not championed by the Ukrainian government, it is fair to say that sort of plays down the fact that they are part of the Ukrainian National Guard, and I probably shouldn't have played that down as much as I did. So there you go. That is everything you need to know about that particular issue. Regardless, the idea that the Ukrainian government in any way, shape or form has a significant Nazi element to it is a lie. That is clearly Russian propaganda. And also the idea that there is a how shall we say, significant Nazi presence in the conflict. No, that isn't true. That isn't accurate either. So just be very careful about that talking point. You will see pictures like that distributed across the internet, especially from tankies. But the fact remains that it is a very, very small minority group. Not even all of the battalion are themselves card-carrying neo-Nazis, if you will. Let's talk about the other thing I said, because we're going to get into misinformation and disinformation. And I said right at the start of the very first stream, once we'd set the table for the history of the Russian and Ukrainian conflict, I said this is going to be war coverage like no other, because this is the first significant major European conflict that we've had while we're in an era of social media. And I said, you are going to see propaganda, you are going to see misinformation, you are going to see disinformation, and it is going to spread like wildfire. Prior to the proliferation of the internet, prior to the rise of social media, yes, we had misinformation. In fact, let me just show you one example, because I did have one message today saying, Richard, you should do a series of videos, talking about the conflict in Iraq for us Zoomers, because, I was born after the conflict, and I want to know what fuckery the American government and the media got up to. And I might do that, right? I might do that. But let me just show you this, just to let you know the type of thing that was spread in just the mainstream media. You would pick up a newspaper and look at absolute nonsense like this back at the time when we were all panicking about the rise of ISIS and bin Laden being some fucking Bond villain. That uncritically is the type of thing that was published in newspapers. This is a picture of bin Laden's mountain fortress, which you can see is like a cutaway of all of these, like he's got himself a secret cave hideout that can house all these weapons and hundreds and thousands of troops. And obviously this is bollocks. First of all, I won't get into it about he was he was in a cave and all, and with dialysis, all right, and he was definitely killed in that opera. I won't get into that. I won't bore you with my thoughts on that, because we will probably veer into conspiracy theory territory, and it's not a good look to do a new stream while setting that up. But anyway, this was absolute garbage. This was nonsense. This is the type of stuff the mainstream media was putting out at the time, and we were just kind of, unflinchingly, passively absorbing it. But the reality was, at least you had to pick up a newspaper, at least you had to turn on the news channel, you had to be relatively engaged. In fact, you could avoid sort of coverage of the war in Iraq and the subsequent war on terror if you wanted to. You could completely disengage from it. Now, not so much. And the type of propaganda and the type of stuff that's gone out is going to be like nothing you've seen before. There's been a big push on the mainstream media. They're talking about this being the first TikTok war. The first TikTok war. I'm not quite sure why they're framing it that way. But the media has got incredibly nervous. And look, as you know from all my critical media series and all the videos I do on my YouTube channel, my soon to crater and die YouTube channel, but it's fine, it'll all be there after I'm dead, won't it? You know that it's not about correcting the misinformation or the disinformation. It's just the media want to be the sole spreaders of misinformation and disinformation. They don't care about accuracy. They don't care about informing you. They just want the right to lie to you, exclusively, unfettered and unchecked. That is what it's all about, because then they can carry water for the parties, the corporations that they want to. That's all it's about. So they have been very nervous because TikTok is allowing us this unfettered, there's that word again, get used to that word in 2022. I mean, we already had unfettered conversations being bad in 2021. You're getting unfettered access to videos from Ukraine. In fact, I saw one just before I went live where it was a girl in Ukraine giving advice on how to drive away abandoned armored vehicles if the Russian army have, like, they've got, run out of fuel or left them because of combat or whatever. Now, again, it might be bullshit, because the problem you've got with all of that is you cannot check this. There's a deluge of information coming out, and you can't check it. In fact, there was one viral TikTok video the other day, and it was a guy parachuting and filming himself, and the way the video was framed, he's parachuting into a war zone, and look how happy he looks, because the guy's like smiling, and it wasn't. It was like a video from 2 years ago. No one's parachuting into a fucking war zone. You probably get murked on the way down. You've got to be really careful with what you watch, especially over on TikTok. TikTok is not particularly well policed as a platform, but I'll tell you what I don't want. I don't want the mainstream media getting it fucking shut down or making temporary demands that TikTok do more, like they did with Facebook, like they do with all the search engines. You know, fuck that. Why are the media why are the media people who are paid to lie to you by special interest groups? Why are they the ones that get to dictate what reality is and what the truth is? It doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever, but they're going for it. You can see here, this was The Guardian, the first TikTok war, how it influences in Russia and Ukraine responding. That one was a little bit tempered, let's say. CNN, because of course, CNN. Here's why Russia's invasion of Ukraine is being called the TikTok war, how social media is changing the battlefield. And there he is, Brian Stelter, the king of the potato people. And I do want to point out that the king of the potato people also, because, you know, if there's one thing the American media love doing, it's huffing the smell of their own farts. He also tweeted this out, and of course, bravely only allowed his followers to reply to this nonsense. The past 24 hours are a reminder that consumers in an era of YouTube and TikTok still gravitate to trusted established news outlets during emergencies. They know where to go, so to speak, and television coverage is essential. Now, of course, in reality, what's been happening is people haven't been gravitating towards the television, and certainly haven't been gravitating towards CNN, whose viewers are down even during a fucking war. People are instead gravitating towards TikTok. And why is that happening? Why would I want to watch a TikTok video over CNN coverage? By the way, CNN still has good journalists. They proved that with the disastrous collapse of Afghanistan. We all remember Clarissa Ward. Clarissa Ward, if you remember, was the woman who stayed there. She was the one in the hijab who was being attacked and harassed while she was there. She really put herself in harm's way to deliver great coverage. And of course, she was one of the few voices at CNN that was absolutely critical about the Biden withdrawal and what a disaster it was, because she got to see it and experience firsthand. So it's not like they don't have good journalists, but the point is, years and years of mistrust, in particular the last 6-7 years of the US media, is now driving people to seek out alternative places to get their news. And this is why a lot of these conspiracy theory blogs are blowing up. This is why you get the rise of QAnon, because there's zero trust in the mainstream media anymore. This is why, by the way, you made the monster that was the Joe Rogan in your mind. You made him as popular, well, not entirely as popular as what he is, but certainly I can't hear the alternative side of things. I hear the narrative, and it doesn't even matter if the narrative shifts 3 months down the road. You will just go with that and then tell me that was the narrative the whole time. I will never hear a counterpoint to what the media wants me to hear. You will never offer that service. That, by the way, used to be legally mandated in your country. That used to be a requirement until Reagan got rid of it. So people are going to TikTok and other sources because they cannot trust a fucking single thing you say. And also, I'll just add this point, CNN taking a TikTok video, putting a CNN watermark on it and playing it on CNN. That is not you covering the news, is it? That isn't you being trusted coverage. That is you sifting through all the detritus and using other people's work to bolster your network and make it look culturally relevant. NPR were a bit more to the point. NPR, of course, would never mislead anyone. NPR never would do that. But here we go. TikTok sees a surge of misleading videos that claim to show the invasion of Ukraine. And again, like I said, yes, a lot of these videos are ones that have been synthesized. It's old footage, it's archive footage, it's C-SPAN footage, and it's being repackaged and repurposed to make it look current. And you have to ask yourself, what the fuck is wrong with a generation of influencers that are using war, hardship, death, destruction, and a potential erosion erosion of geopolitical harmony for fucking clout and likes. Well, unfortunately, as we should know, the existence of J Station proves that people will fucking do absolutely anything, won't they? I mean, let's not pretend, by the way, that the top political commentators on this very platform are operating on a level that's even better than that. They're not. It's just content, isn't it? So they're not interested in correcting anything. They're not interested in giving you the truth. They're not interested in acting as a news service. They're just interested in views, subs, content. Again, it's sort of a little bit dystopian, isn't it? That react content, we're reacting to a war. Now, that's where we're at. And beyond that, the streams, the videos, the content itself, it offers no substance. It doesn't offer any insight. It doesn't offer any alternative views. There's no expert opinion. There's no additional information. There's no clarification. So the TikTok boom, probably shouldn't use the word boom, all things considered, obviously has led to some misinformation. Now, I'll just clarify coming in. I know my audience is obviously all media students, all absolutely savvy. So you do know the difference between misinformation and disinformation. But just in case when this goes to YouTube, when this video is filled with comments about how I need to stay in my lane, let's just clarify a few things. Misinformation is where a story that is mistaken to be true is spread and proliferated, and it is a genuine error of reporting. It could be a translation error, could be a manufactual error, could be that the story is whole cloth false, but it is published, and it's not done deliberately. It's an honest mistake. Reporting errors happen. Used to be journalists could admit that and take the consequences. Not anymore. That's misinformation. I'm misinforming you. Disinformation is when false information is disseminated into the public, spread with the sole purpose of making you think and feel a certain way. It's propaganda. It is something that has a political end, and we've seen a lot of that. It's pretty bad. You've got a lot of that going on, and what's really interesting is even with these false stories, some of which we'll get to, false stories that were deliberately spread for a specific purpose, and you might think that purpose is positive, it's still disinformation. You still got to fucking cut through it because facts matter, accuracy matters, the truth matters. But anyway, we'll get into that. So one of the ones I talked about in a previous stream, so this is just a nice, easy, quick hit, right? It's just a nice, easy one to blow out. There was a lot of people saying, oh no, they've taken over Chernobyl power station, right? They've taken over Chernobyl, and they're shooting. There's a gunfight at Chernobyl, and obviously they've got all the toxic waste disposal holders, the bunkers with waste in. And if one of those was to get pissed, it would be a disaster. Now, I won't get into the back and forth of what you would have to do to blow up one of those nuclear waste bunkers. Is pretty fucking intense. Because it turns out they didn't want it getting out, and it turns out to store nuclear waste, you got to have some pretty thick concrete, let's say. But it was spread that the fighting had triggered a leak, and there was misinformation about it. It was just spreading, and this was just predicated on a simple mistranslation, which was later corrected. Here it was by Richard Engel, clarifying the advisor says heaving fighting may disturb nuclear waste. It was reported as did disturb the nuclear waste. And of course, there's absolutely no nuclear leaks. No nuclear waste has been disturbed. There's not been a sudden spike in the Chernobyl region. The world isn't going to end. We're not going to have to make Chernobyl 2. It's fine. It's all good. But this was just a mistake, that, an innocent mistake based on a mistranslation in language. And then you have slightly, a little bit, maybe, I don't know, this is like maybe not as important, but it's worth pointing out. I'm sure you saw all of these pictures. These are the pictures. Respect to the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, stand for Ukraine. And here he is. It's a picture of him. You'll have seen these pictures. There he is. He's deployed to the front lines of Ukraine with his men, isn't he? He's out there. Look at these current photos of him out there on the front lines in his armor, walking around, meeting the troops. You can see there. He's like, right, guys, we're going to do it. We're going to fuck up some Russians and defend our country. And this was spread by the left wing, by the right wing, these pictures. They were saying, look at him. Haha, think about Trudeau. He ran away because of the honking, didn't he? On the one side. And then obviously, because it's about that. And then on the left side, it's like, wow, you know, Trump would never, right? You know, so you saw both sides of the nonsense. Well, these aren't even current photos. These are photos from last year when he was deployed on, you know, just doing the rounds and was sort of troops had been deployed on an exercise. And he went out to meet them, and he went out to meet them in military dress. Now, listen, he's out there, as we'll get to. He is on the. He's done many an address from Kiev. You've seen him there. He's out there holding the guns. He was out there filming in downtown Kiev after a night of airstrikes. We'll get into all of that, but these pictures are not current. They've been spread by the media. They've been used by the media in their reporting, and I'm just saying it's misleading. Now, it's a minor point, right? This one, I'm sure this one will have come across your feed. Now, 10 million views on this, by the way, guys. 10 million views. This is Henry Bolton, OBE, right? A British politician. And this is 10 million views on this video. It's been spread everywhere. It's all gone over the news. And listen, spoiler, it's a little bit disturbing because you are about to see an armored vehicle run over a car, right? And there is someone in the car, obviously, but nobody gets hurt. But nobody dies, there's no blood, there's no gore, there's nothing like that. There was a follow-up video where the person in the car was prized from it. So this isn't a death thing. This isn't like faces of death or any of that stuff, in case there's a Twitch mod lurking. But let's just here we go. So you can see. And crushed. So, right. Now, you can see what the tweet says. Is this the Russian army's idea of liberating the Ukrainian people, Putin? The truth is you don't give a damn about people, not Ukrainians, Russians, or even the lives of your soldiers. You only care about your mad ideology of recreating the Russian Empire. This was then spread in other areas. People were saying, well, Putin's had his Tiananmen Square moment, complete lack of respect for human life, and so on and so forth. Now, slight problem in the sense that that is not a Russian tank, but in fact, a Ukrainian armed vehicle. It has none of the Russian insignias. It's not the Russian coloration. This has been independently verified by multiple military experts in the field. And actually, what happened was, this is a vehicle, supposedly, according to secondary reports, under Ukrainian control, who saw a car coming at them on the road, got worried thinking it might be a trap, and literally span out and lost control. This is an unfortunate accident. Unfortunately, the guy inside the car was safe and was relatively unharmed. It's a miracle, frankly. And listen, you can criticize Putin. He's a cunt. We're all on that page. He clearly doesn't value human lives. We've seen shelling in civilian areas, but this very quickly rose to become the image of that particular day, the video of that particular day, with everybody jumping on this, saying this is why we should put troops on the ground. NATO should get involved. Are we going to let his tanks run over civilians? There it is. It's got to be said, these things are dangerous. This is misinformation that could lead to an escalation. You've got to double check these things. So that's the misinformation, right? Actually, as well, while we're talking about misinformation, I've also told people, I find it staggering that there are people out there still, well, they're going to be doing a lot less of it now, as we'll get to. There are people out there still, Russian Times articles. Guys, it's Russian state media. What do you think they are going to say about this conflict? And I'm just going to show you. I said, do not trust anybody that uncritically uses Russian Times talking points or Russian Times as a fucking source for anything. Here's a clip of the type of nonsense that's going on Russian
Mariupol,
Times.
which is Ukraine's large.
And just in case you can't understand, if he's got quite a thick accent, there are subtitles present, I believe. I can put them on. But basically, they are saying that the civilians, the Ukrainian civilians, are actually happy. Stop me if you've heard this one before. They're actually happy that the Russians are here. They will be greeted as liberators, some might say, right? Yes, America, I'm talking about the Iraq War, where you told that lie. But this is the type of shit that's coming on Russian Times.
Of Mariupol, which is Ukraine's largest port,
Russian Today, sorry.
is now almost surrounded with the garrison that is there. The Russian side has said that it is nationalist elements that are putting up the stiffest resistance, and that those...
Oh, I should have said earlier, by the way, when they say nationalist elements putting up the stiffest resistance, you know the Azov Battalion, the white nationalist group I showed you at the start? 800 members. Not 8,000, 800. That is the big nationalist neo-Nazi presence in Ukraine, according to Russia.
To the regular military, to regular formations, that they are choosing to negotiate and in some cases lay down their arms and return to their homes. But it is very difficult to verify this information at this time, because events are developing so quickly and because there are so few reliable reports close to the front lines where it is extremely dangerous. The situation there is that many roads have been mined. We have received reports from the city of Berdyansk, which is halfway between the Crimea and Mariupol, which is the axis of Russian advance, which is where Ukrainian units have planted in the city itself and in the outskirts mines, for example, to surprise and to devastate advancing forces. It is very difficult to reach Mariupol or the vicinity of Mariupol at this point. There have been, according to reports, more than a dozen civilian casualties here in the city of Donetsk, victims of undirected fire into neighborhoods, civilian neighborhoods, places where there are apartment buildings and other houses. We have seen, of course, all over Ukraine, different reactions to this operation. There are certainly civilians who have been happy to see Russian forces, but there have also been those who have been less than happy.
So just to put that into context, according to Russia Today, the scale of the Ukrainian reaction runs from less than happy to happy. That's where we're at with that. So when you see people quoting this publication, especially on this particular topic, just discredit them. It's a joke. It's a sick joke. That's the misinformation out the way. Now to become unpopular. Let's do disinformation. And I hate to break it to you guys, in a time of war, like I told you would happen, one of the key components of disinformation is the underdog state putting out stories designed to inspire bravery in their troops, because obviously I need you to be motivated. I can't tell you that the situation is hopeless. I can't tell you that we're facing innumerable odds and we're all gonna die, because you might get the wacky idea to put down weapons and fuck off, go get drunk somewhere and not fight. So I have to tell you that. It's understandable. It happens. I remember when I was studying history, we did this in World War II. By the way, America, I know obviously the history that you get taught is that World War II was lost, and basically there were a group of nations that were just incompetent, not brave, and we needed you to get involved, which you resisted, but fortunately you did, and you won the war. Well, again, I'm from a tiny little island that for 3 years stood up to Hitler's Axis alone, and when we expanded that, we had the brave people of the French resistance that bizarrely get airbrushed out of history or are reduced to cowards and caricatures in popular media, not to mention the combined efforts of many nations that resisted before being occupied. And of course, incredibly, the Russians themselves, which we're not allowed to talk about anymore. But no, America, it's fine. So yes, and of course the Polish. I mean, look, we all know. If you're from a nation, you know. Right? But that doesn't mean, by the way, there wasn't propaganda and bullshit being told, because we all had to get fucking motivated, didn't we? We all had to get motivated. So there's loads of examples about war heroes, about, you pick it. Whatever country you're from, you will have a guy that fought in a war who, oh, wow, it's all steeped in mythology and things like that, because it's good for morale. And so this was going to be no different. This was going to be absolute. Oh, yeah, actually, Jace, good point. Or you tell propaganda designed to reduce the severity, the kind of imposing presence of the enemy. Now, my understanding, by the way, Jace, is Hitler did only have one ball. I believe he did have monochidism, as it's called. I always thought that was true, although I think some people say, because wasn't there a book by his niece or something? I want to say I read it at university that confirmed it. But anyway, regardless, I also have read that it was spread by the KGB or something. I don't know. Whatever. But yeah, you also spread propaganda to make the enemy look foolish and silly. So let's start with the Snake Island 13. Now, I saw this story, came across my feed, and listen, I'm a sucker for war shit. I'm a sucker for that. I cry at war movies. I think about my granddad. I think about the sacrifice. I think about that generation and what they must have lived through. I think about being 8 years old and listening to my grandfather, drunk on rum, struggle to even articulate simple sentences about his time as a naval hero in World War II. And I think about how brave people have to be to sort of face up to that reality. It's a shame that there's a generation of people now that will not have a direct connection with the generation that fought in World War II and be able to hear firsthand their sacrifices and firsthand their struggles and hardships, and also how they were haunted for the rest of their lives by the things they had to do to survive. It's potent and powerful, and there's generations of kids that are never going to have that. They're going to learn about it in books. They're going to learn about it in films. I get emotional about it. I'm a big softie for that stuff. I always cry at war films. I think it strikes something in me. So when I saw the story of the Snake Island 13, it was the type of propaganda that would work on me. It ticks all the boxes, deliberately so. I'll play it to you. This was the original recording that was circulated around. This is Ian Bremer spreading it. And this is 8.3 million views just on this. And this is a tiny island. It's got a Ukrainian naval group on it, and they are in the process of staring down a Russian warship. They're staring down a Russian warship that's threatening to blow them out of the water. And this is their last recording, a defiant recording.
Тоже надо. На всякий случай.
Now, supposedly what happens after that recording is the Russian warship opened fire on them and killed all 13 people. And so the story goes, their last words were, go fuck yourself, Russian warship. That's what they were saying. And obviously the Redditors were all there. Oh, brave. Thanks for the defiance, kind stranger. Oh, tip, my soldier. They were doing all of that, and it spread around, and it spread all over fucking Twitter, right? And people were loving this shit. So much so, by the way, that last sentence, Russian warship, go fuck yourself, is now being held up on signs across everywhere at all the protests across all of the world. That phrase itself, Russian warship, go fuck yourself, became a rallying cry. And now what you have just seen, my friends, is exactly how propaganda operates. Because why? This story is a fiction. There are no dead 13 heroes of Snake Island. And we'll just get into it. But I just want to do one thing before we even do. Let's assess this. Who would distribute the recording? You see, a good part of propaganda is it overwhelms you emotionally to the point where critical thinking is shut down, and anyone that attempts to think critically is challenged by the person in an emotional episode, right? So think about it. I'm a Russian warship. Beep, beep. That's what warships do. There's a bunch of dudes on an island, not many. They're telling me to go fuck myself. I kill them, and I go over and I get the recording. And I think, well, this will be hilarious. Who distributed it? Who? How? Why? You know, there's no critical aspect. It doesn't make sense how this recording would even get out if everybody died, right? The Russians wouldn't distribute it. This is the perfect piece of propaganda. And another thing, just also on that note, if ever anything seems too fucking perfect, too good a story, if ever you're watching something really unfold and going, holy shit, you can't make it up, you couldn't bloody script this, turns out it's almost certainly fiction. It's almost because life isn't that neat. It just doesn't make, things aren't that good. You will get the occasional one that's like staggeringly true, but it's very fucking rare. So that happened. First of all, just quickly before we even get into the media reaction, let me just show you this cunt. Now remember, this is at a time, by the way, when everyone thinks it's real, right? This is Malcolm Nance. He is a intelligence expert of 36 years. I'll tell you a little bit about Malcolm Nance because I'm familiar with his work because, again, he rose to prominence during the Bush era. He's wrote a number of books about ISIS and the rise of, the Taliban, the war on terror. This is a guy that, an expert in Al-Qaeda. And obviously during the Bush era, this guy was on TV. And he's obviously served in military and he's in the intelligence community. So he's widely respected. Unfortunately, when Trump came along, my box, my box, his box went. He just fucking lost his box and he's one of the guys that peddled all the Russian disinformation nonsense and everything else. And because of that, CNN absolutely loved him. He's been embroiled in a few fucking controversies, said some fucking outrageous shit as well. But this just to let you know, again, as a spoiler for later in the stream, when we look at all the dog shit American reactions, oh my God, watch this, just in case. Crying with laughter emojis. Now, obviously, people died. You can see people reacting to it. Right? It's not someone to laugh about. These soldiers died. There's fucking legends. I hear all 13 men were killed. Men and women. Apparently they all died, refused to surrender. Sadly, they were all killed. Broken heart emojis. Right? So you can see immediately, like, the propaganda's working. It's taking hold. Malcolm Nance is a cunt because he thinks it's real and is just laughing at the death of 13 Ukrainians. Doesn't bother him, he's an American. But fortunately for him, he can pull back from that because actually the whole thing is crying with laughter emojis, isn't it? It was confirmed by the Ukrainian government, obviously, when they were called, in to give comment on about it. This is the Washington Post again. Does anyone want to check this in the media? Anyone? Do we have anyone in the media? This. I'm not even going to bore you by showing how far this spread, because otherwise this will be like a 6-hour stream, and nobody wants that. But least of all the people who get it on YouTube, apparently. But this is just the general consensus. Nobody critically analysed that story at all. They saw a recording on social media. They even went to the trouble of calling up representatives from the fucking Ukrainian government. Nobody thought to check if it was real. Not one journalist. And like I say, by probably 4 to 5 hours after it, I was sort of sat there going, yeah, actually, hang on a minute. That's a bit too neat, isn't it? It got me at first. I won't lie. Don't tell you no lies. But after a while, I was like, "There's just no way, is there? It doesn't make sense. It's too neat. It's too good." Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said the 13 who were killed on Snake Island will be bestowed Hero of Ukraine, the highest honorific he can award. A recording of the 13 border guards telling a Russian warship, "Go fuck yourself," went viral on Thursday. Anyone wanna? Anybody want to do some fact checking? Anybody? And in brackets, heroes of democracy and freedom. Strong arm emoji. One must say the Ukrainian army is holding it pretty well on its own against the barbarian Putin. Anyway, Twitter discourse. Now, the problem was, of course, they had just surrendered. They literally had just surrendered. They did tell them to go fuck themselves, but then they were just immediately captured. And you can see here, this was a report in The Guardian. Snake Island defenders may still be alive, Ukraine's State Border Guard says. The Ukrainian soldiers who defended an island in the Black Sea from an air and sea bombardment, reportedly telling an officer on board a Russian Navy warship to go fuck himself when asked to surrender, are believed to still be alive, according to Ukrainian officials. There were 13 border guards stationed on Snake Island, a roughly 16-hectare, I love how they use hectares, rocky island owned by Ukraine that sits about 186 miles west of Crimea when Russian troops bombed the island on Thursday. All 13 soldiers were believed to have died of refusing to surrender. However, in a recent statement, the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine said, "We have a strong belief that all Ukrainian defenders of Zmyny, that means snake apparently, island, may be alive." After receiving information about their possible location, the DPSU, together with the Armed Forces of Ukraine, are conducting work on identifying our soldiers. Yeah, there was some video footage circulating and reports in the media about it. And you can see here, the Snake Island incident turns out to be a hoax. 82 of the guard on the island surrendered. It seems someone has some explaining to do, and this is a video of the soldiers being captured and brought aboard, being transported to sort of military bases. So that was a great bit of disinformation, a great bit of propaganda. Everyone bought a hook, line, and sinker. Now, let's talk about the ghost of Kiev. There was reports, wasn't there, that there was some jet pilot, like the fucking Red Baron, just flying around, was shooting down Russian planes. I think this was the first That is a rare sighting of the ghost of Ukraine, who is 6-0, shooting down a Russian Su-35 with his MiG-29. He's the first pilot since World War II to achieve ace status. By the way, if you've ever wondered where the term ace comes from, it's getting 5 confirmed kills in a plane. That's where we get it from. So that was doing the rounds, right? And everyone's, oh my God, yes, the Ukrainians, they're going to win. They're actually going to win because they've got the ghost of Ukraine. And, you know, fucking a number of publications picked up on it. A number of people said that this was, great news. Just to let you know, that video you've just seen is fake. It was actually made using, let me tell you, Digital Combat Simulator, which is a game that was released in 2008, right? So ridiculous. But didn't stop it going viral, you know? So obviously, this is just nonsense. But you can see it got confirmed. I just think this one is hilarious because, again, there were elements of, like, the Ukrainian government that were confirming it and people on social media saying it's definitely real. This is Marca, everyone's favorite publication. Former Ukrainian president confirms the ghost of Kiev is real. As it turns out, the so-called ghost of Kiev is actually real. There are now various official sources that have confirmed his existence, and some even shared a picture of him. Former President Petro Poroshenko decided to upload a picture of the heroic pilot who downed 6 aircraft from the Russian government on Thursday, February 24th. This confirms the ghost of Kiev is not only real, but he remains active in the air. In one of the toughest nights for the capital of Ukraine, this pilot is roaming the skies, looking for more victims to add to his list of kills. Right? Now, of course, it's absolute nonsense. And once the internet got wind that it was nonsense, you can imagine what happened. Invariably, the internet started to do their thing. It was clear bullshit. Of course it's bullshit. The video was bullshit. It even looks fake. And the idea that there's some sort of shadowy ace pilot in Ukraine who can't be shot down, can't be stopped, down in Russian planes, it's just nonsense. And so the internet, when they found out it was bullshit, they went with a certified classic. You can see here, confirmed Ukrainian ace pilot, ghost of Kiev, confirmed as local man, Sam Hydenko, right? Now, that is Sam Hyde, okay? And for those that don't know, every time there's a tragic mass shooting, the first way the media gets tested in America is the internet puts out a picture of Sam Hyde firing an automatic rifle and say, this is the shooter. And it is, and for years, every time there's a spree shooting in America, you can test the due diligence of the reporters by seeing if they go, well, preliminary reports suggest that the perpetrator, Sam Hyde, he's published a manifesto, he can't keep getting away with this. So it comes up, you know, all the time. So naturally, that's the meme. I'm scared to scroll down on a Sam Hyde thread. But basically underneath this, there were people, you can check for yourself. I'm too scared on Twitch to scroll. But basically, people were going, why did you dox him? There were people who honestly thought that this was real, that Sam Hydenko actually is the hot dog pilot ghost of Kiev. And it gets really bad, because people who are making decisions about what we do next in the West, in America in particular, actually fell for this. They're not savvy enough to know about the Sam Hyde fucking meme. Here's an example. This is Adam Kinziger. This is real. I promise you. The hashtag Ghost of Kiev has a name, and he is absolutely... this is a congressman. This is an American congressman. This is an American congressman. The Ghost of Kiev has a name, and he has absolutely owned the Russian Air Force. Godspeed and more kills, Samuel. One comment, by the way, on that previous thread that absolutely buckled me. Someone went, but he has eyeglasses. Pilots cannot have eyeglasses. Yeah, there's a lot of things wrong with it, isn't there? And principally that it's Sam Hyde was the... but anyway, Samuel Hyde, and obviously people started fucking saying, like, if you believe the Ghost of Kiev, you're an idiot. People were out there debunking. People got upset over the debunking of the fucking existence of the Ghost of Kiev. I don't think it fucking behooves anyone to have that bullshit out there, really. Yeah, I get it. Oh, it's an inspirational story for the Ukrainian people. I doubt any Ukrainians on the ground believe that there's a fucking Ghost of Kiev. This is something to placate stupid fucking Westerners, isn't it? That's what it's for. But I saw someone from Barstool getting upset. I think Barstool is all that hotbed of political debate. The people who shit on the Ghost of Kiev being a fake story are the worst. How about maybe just getting behind a badass story to support Ukraine, rather than priding yourself on being a little snopesy bitch narc? Now, the main reason he got upset was obviously he tweeted out about how wicked it was and how awesome it was, and so had several of the members of the Barstool people. But, you know, come on, man. And then, of course, Fat Eddie Vedder. Fat Eddie Vedder's replied, it's still real to me, damn it, which is fair enough, right? So, anyway, the internet went into overdrive. There were parodies. I can't show them all. I definitely can't. Here's one. This is a wholesome one, I suppose. A lone soldier from the UK has single-handedly destroyed 15 Russian submarines on his own, armed with nothing but a knife and sheer will. He's known to the locals as the Shark of Kiev. It's real to me. The Shark. Let's all hear it. For the Shark of Kiev. Pour one out for the brave Shark of Kiev. That was a good one. A bit more topical. If you know who Jack Murphy is, you'll appreciate this one. You'll notice I didn't talk about Jack Murphy at all on my stream when that was popping off. Not my area, but here it is. Pictured here is an unknown Ukrainian freedom fighter who slowed down an entire division of Russian infantry by allowing them each to have their way with his wife. For his heroism, he has been dubbed the Cook of Kiev. That one there. That one, the Cook of Kiev there. Personal favourite. Reports coming out of a Ukrainian soldier who was driven across the border into Russian territory and eaten all of Russia's grain supplies and logistical food support. He is being called the Pig of Ukraine. Flag emoji, helmet emoji, pig emoji. Personal favourite. If you want to see some others, you can Google the Roar of Kiev or the Ass. I can't even say it. The Ass Bandit of Odessa. Check them out if you want. Oh, shit, I can't believe I missed this.
So their last words were, this is it. Russian warship, go F yourself. Put yourself in that position. You know you're going to die.
Go fuck yourself.
Go F yourself.
Those 13 men are dead. Those 13 men are dead. And they died heroes.
So, yeah, you see the problem? See the problem? Like, you know, you didn't see me fucking biting on that one. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, all of that out the way. So serious note. Obviously, look, that's funny, right? That's essentially harmless and funny. But there were other stories that came through, and I have my doubts about. There was a story, and this sounds awful to say. There was a story about a young guy who died putting some explosives down on a bridge because they wanted to take out the bridges before the Russian tanks could advance into the cities, and apparently someone had to stay on the bridge and detonate a satchel charge. And I don't doubt I don't doubt he died. I certainly doubt the circumstances under which that's being reported, and I hate to say it, but let me just tell you why I do say that. I'll tell you a horrible story now, right? So we go from the comedy of Sam Hydenko and Nikocado Avocado to tales from Richard Lewis's harrowing life. And as I've said many times, one of the reasons I was always vehemently anti-war, but one of the ways that it sort of personally touched me was obviously my best friend was in the Royal Marines during the Iraq War. He went into Basra and he was killed. He was killed in a friendly fire accident. But we didn't know that, right? It wasn't initially reported as friendly fire. And he had a full military funeral. Because of that, despite being his best friend, and we'd grown up together and we played rugby together, he was the first guy I got to know when I moved to the Northeast. And, we were really, really close, really, really tight. He was a great friend to me. When somebody dies in the military, dies in combat, the military come in and they have a huge input in the funeral. Family, obviously, is kind of invested in that stuff. And as a result, I didn't get to carry my friend's coffin. It was 6 soldiers that got to carry him. And I always was really resentful about kind of the way I got pushed out. But that was the way it was. And at the funeral, there was other injured soldiers, people who'd been on the boat. He was killed. The official version, up until it was exposed by The Guardian, as a lie. The official version was he got hit by a rocket-propelled grenade while he was on a boat. The grenade detonated right next to where he was sat. He suffered horrific injuries and succumbed to them, but they were able to get out. They fought their way out of the water, and basically Chris was the only casualty. And there were other injured soldiers at the funeral, and during the funeral, they got up one by one and were telling these stories about what a great guy Chris was. And some of the stories that got talked about were about prior to his death, and they were telling stories about when the grenade hit the boat. We were all in shock, but Chris, even though he was injured, got out through the side. He was dragging people out the water, like he was on some Rambo shit. He was shooting the Iraqi insurgents, and none of us would be alive today if it wasn't for Chris. And so they told all these stories, like heroism, and I'm sure they meant well. But if you know anything, if you've ever had a loved one who dies, you don't want lies about the manner of their death. In fact, you want the truth so you can sort of attain closure. Anyway, after that, we all went home from the funeral, and then it came out in The Guardian that actually the Ministry of Defence had lied, and Chris had been hit by a British missile. They'd fucked up. They got the coordinates wrong. Somebody hadn't up because they were a fast reaction unit to what they thought was contact. Turns out it wasn't even there in the first place. They rapidly deployed them to go and support and then didn't update the information, the coordinates, to the HQ. They saw strange vessels arriving on a scene of a firefight, and so they fired missiles at them. They killed their own troops. But I say they only killed Chris. Now, also, we know from the autopsy, there's absolutely no way Chris did anything but die instantly. He literally bore the entire brunt of the missile. It hit him perfectly where he was sat in a boat them small little scout boats they send down the rivers in like Basra and Sierra Leone, where he saw combat duty in both of those campaigns. And so they lied at his funeral. They got up, they lied to his mother, they lied to everyone who was there, they lied to his fiancée. They lied, just try and make him sound more heroic. And I get it. I think it's probably well-intentioned. But ultimately, it doesn't help, and it sucks. And then when you realise they're actually part of a fucking conspiracy, and they must have had some inkling that actually it was friendly fire, it was blue on blue, it's very hard not to really sort of despise those individuals that told those lies. You didn't have to get up and tell the stories. You know, you didn't have to tell the stories. You could have been silent. You could have talked about all the fun runs he did when he ran the distance of the fucking, you know, Nile or whatever the fuck he was. He was like an incredibly physically fit specimen. He did a load of charity work, or what the humanitarian aid he did in India, or stuff. You could have told a million stories. You didn't have to lie about him being a war hero and pulling people out the wreckage as he was bleeding out. Didn't have to do any of that, but they did. Like I say, there's this idea that we never want to accept, like a soldier's death can just be in vain. It can just be a tragedy. A bomb can just go off. Somebody can shoot and miss and kill their own man. Clerical errors can get you killed in a war zone. We don't like to accept that. We don't actually like to ever sort of accept the premise that a significant percentage of people who come home in coffins, it's by our own hand. It's by mistakes. It's by panic. It's by fear. It's by ineptitude. But it does. And so when you see this stuff coming out, I'm always incredibly skeptical if it sounds a little bit too heroic, a little bit too glorified, because there's a whole machine there that has to get young working class people into the military to fight these wars, to inspire them to fight these wars. And sure, the Ukraine situation's different. You are defending your home from an invading force, but just as a principle, you know, if it was down to the military, everyone's death would be heroic, because that's what makes you go to a recruitment office and put on a uniform. 20 years, still talking about you, buddy. So let's get to the updates on the situation. We knew things were getting bad. We saw troops being rapidly kind of mobilized. We saw an advancement on Kiev, and indeed Kiev was under siege and being shelled by day 3 because of the need to get, you know, boots on the ground and get a resistance force going. Zelensky signed what was called a decree on the mobilization of population, and this was that he wanted to get more people to be able to be deployed and get mobilized. This was sort of a rapid deployment. This was also happening, by the way, at the same time that they now went from it being reservists that were going to serve to actually, if you're an 18 to 60-year-old, we're likely to conscript you, then to if you're an 18 to 60-year-old still in Ukraine, you cannot leave Ukraine. There was also temporary freezing of Ukrainian civilian bank accounts because they were significantly worried about people fleeing the country with their money, compounding an economic collapse in the country. So there were a number of very harsh and strict measures taken to keep enough people there to act as a resistance force on the ground, especially around the capital of Kiev. I got my own views, by the way. Like, I don't like the draft, obviously, because I'm a hippie peacenik, because of my own experiences. But in this situation, I will say, I'd put it this way, I think about what I would do if there was like an invading force in Britain. If it was like someone cool, like the Belgians, you know, or something, like in a world where that would happen, I'd be, yeah, all right then, you can take over, you're all right. You know, that's fine. I'd go out and I would greet them as liberators from a Tory government, actually. But, you know, on a serious note, I think about what I would do, and obviously, I mean, look, I'm fat, I'm old, my knees and back are shot, I'm blind, you know, I've got like really bad eyesight in my left eye. But I'd grab a gun. Of course I would. How could I not? I do feel it's a little bit different in this situation to compare it to, say, for example, the Vietnam draft, where there was absolutely no need to be fighting that war, let alone, you know, forcing people to go and fight it. I would do that. In fact, one night over this weekend, when I was wasted, I was sort of thinking to myself, you know, what would Hemingway do in this situation? I was like looking at flights to Poland. I was thinking, yeah, I'll go out. And then, you know, obviously I sobered up and I was like, what the fuck was that about, Rich, you know? I was like, yeah, guys, listen, I'm thinking about going out there, actually. It's like, yeah, all right, not gonna do that. But, you know, I saw a lot of people talking about how Zelensky's bad for the policies he's passed. And it's like, guys, they got to fucking do something what you're talking about. Also, as well, I don't think you understand kind of what it's like in Eastern Europe and the Baltics and Russia, their history is fucking very different to a lot of ours. They are cut from a very different cloth, and as a result, they're not as, how shall we say, frivolous around concepts such as territory and you know, heritage. It means something very different to them. I think a lot of the negativity around these policies was like a little bit silly. Then we had civilian buildings being hit, which, you know, this has continued today. Oh, we should have time to get to that. This is shocking footage, and I immediately double-checked this. This has been verified. There are multiple angles of this. You have to assume this is one of those, like, collateral damage mistake things. I can't show you the footage of the aftermath. I don't know if there were any confirmed casualties, but they are pulling bleeding people out of the building. There were first responders on the scene after this. But, you know, it's fucking insane. Like, there are absolutely, you know, like, just these terrible scenes where people like to think of modern warfare as being clean and sanitized, and, oh, we're only firing missiles at, you know, military targets. They're machines. They malfunction. They fired so many fucking missiles. Like, some of them are going to go off course. Some of them are going to hit civilian targets. And this one, and people in the chat saying it was confirmed later that it was 6 casualties. I'll take you at your word. It certainly is unthinkable there could be 0 casualties off a strike like that. And this is another ongoing issue that you've got. Things like this will escalate it, because people are not going to tolerate the death of civilians. People are not going to tolerate the death of, you know, like, innocent bystanders who were just at home, you know, during, you know, a shelling. Yeah, it's just horrible. Just absolutely horrible. So that happened. And then, of course, we also had other just madness, like the potential. So I said on, like, the first stream, I was like, I didn't feel there was a real potential for this to escalate, in the sense that I don't think NATO are going to commit troops to it. They've said as much. America's said as much. I think it's disastrous if you do. I think if we get into a conflict with Russia, the loss of human life will be on a scale we haven't seen since World War II. It will be really fucking bad, and it should be avoided at all costs, even if it means on some level a sort of temporary appeasement of Putin. I don't know what I can and can't say on Twitch. All I'm going to say is, when I think about despots that go crazy in history, I think about how actually all it takes is one person within their confidence to do the right thing, and it can all be ended, can't it? And so maybe a temporary appeasement can work and put us forward to a future where something like that might be possible. I don't see a world where the people of Russia can overthrow Putin as leader. I don't see a world where free and open elections will see Putin removed. He's a malingerer. He knows how to stick around. And so we're essentially relying at the moment, the strategy is this, and I'm going to show you all of the sanctions later, but the strategy is this: sanction Russia into oblivion and hope all of the Russian oligarchs and industry, all of the people, now that their papers get fucked with, turn around and somehow do something about the Putin situation, whatever form that might take. But until then, we're just stuck in this holding pattern, and it doesn't look like there's anything realistically we can do. It would be an absolute disaster to escalate it. But then you have the problem that, like, Putin, I don't know, man. I'm starting to believe the reports that, like, this shit is unhinged and out of control. This was what happened on the 25th. There were 2 merchant ships that just got hit by Russian attacks in the Black Sea when they were taking that Snake Island, among other things. You had a Japanese carrier hit by a rocket. I mean, holy shit, a Japanese fucking ship gets hit. And a Moldovan chemical tanker gets hit, which I believe caused like a slight spill. You can see the thick acrid smoke, billowing out from the vessel. This is a problem. Moldova, by the way, for those who don't know, I mean, Japan, it goes without saying, they're kind of like a NATO ally, but and they are, they're around the table. They've had talks with NATO and the international community and allies of NATO. Moldova are a huge NATO ally. Moldova are precluded from joining NATO because they have a really cool constitution. Moldova, it's enshrined in their constitution that they must always remain neutral in international matters, that they can only sort of take up arms if they themselves are being invaded or under threat. They cannot join anything that would remove them from their neutrality. And obviously, as a result, they cannot join NATO as a result of that. You've got two nations that aren't directly embroiled in the conflict and actually publicly have sort of said nothing about it. And they're having sort of civilian, merchant vessels hit by stray attacks in the Black Sea. And, we know from history, one of these can be the point that brings a nation into a war, and then suddenly everyone's got to pick a fucking side now. It's like, I really felt like after this that we might actually be on the precipice of something very bad. And I'm not like a scaremonger at all. But, Japan having a vessel blown up when they've already publicly come out and they support the sanctions against Russia, and they've been very open about their thoughts about everything that's happening right now. Very pro-NATO, anti-Russian sentiment. I don't know. That's a major developed nation. This was kind of the first time where I was starting to think, like, holy shit, actually. Meanwhile, on the ground, the resistance efforts were continuing. This was the reports that 18,000 guns were just being given out to civilians. They just they came down using, like, garbage trucks, essentially, and sort of local city infrastructure vehicles. And they started they literally were on a megaphone saying, come and fight for your country, and giving people like AKs and weapons.
Приходите, мы вас будем всех встречать. Даже без документов раздают. Приходи, защищай свое государство Украину.
And so they place estimates, as I said, at about 18,000 weapons have been distributed to the local populace. Meanwhile, Zelensky himself is deployed in Kiev. Zelensky has been capturing the minds of the world, hasn't he, with his great speeches. I mean, he seems to be a great orator. You can see that. And also a sort of level of defiance, this type of defiance that we're all tapping into as being admirable. See, obviously, the Snake 13 incident. And the problem that we've had is, like, there's these, like, sort of insane, kind of like sound bites coming out, almost sort of too good to be true. It's like, apparently he told EU leaders that, Putin, and he did a public address where he said, I'm the target. Putin's going to get me. This might be the last time you see me alive. There was also this widely reported quote. The US offered to evacuate him and say, we'll get you out if you want. And Zelensky said, listen, I need ammunition, not a ride, as in I need military aid. I don't need to be anywhere but here in my country right now. That's where we're at. He says, do not believe the fakes. I am here. It was widely reported he wasn't actually in Ukraine, that he'd already evacuated and gone somewhere. That's been widely distributed. Those photos I showed you earlier being from another time, this is how misinformation can lead to more misinformation, potential disinformation. I've seen a few Russian outlets, I think Sputnik was one of them, saying Zelensky's not even there. So they had to put out a statement saying, look, I'm still here. So don't believe the fakes. I am here. We're not putting down arms. We will be defending our country because our weapon is truth, and our truth is that this is our land, our country, our children, and we will defend all of this. That is it. That's all I wanted to tell you. Glory to Ukraine. So Zelensky's there. The ex-president Poroshenko went on American news to basically say, look, check me out. I'm here too. You can see this clip here.
Can you tell me what you and the group you're with right now there are armed with? and what your intention is if the Russians roll in
this
the
is
next
very
few
easy.
hours?
Just my assistance here. This is the short Kalashnikov. We have just
I do want to say, like, whatever happens next, like, Ukrainians fucking roll up ready. Like, I mean, fair play. Like, there's going to be a strong uptake for fucking love of the Ukrainians for fucking decades to come off the back of this.
let me see, maybe 4 and low on the 300 members of the battalion of the territorial defense. And we have 2 machine gun, and we have more or less that's it. We don't have any heavy artillery, we don't have tanks, we don't have an armed personal carrier because we launched this process just a couple of days ago. And we create that for the 2 days. This is the long line of the people who want to enlist it in the battalion, but we don't have enough arms for that. And this is the only limits why the civil defense, the normal, ordinary people, sometimes never been in the army, staying in line now to join us. This is extremely touchable and extremely great demonstration how Ukrainian people hate Putin and how we are against Russian aggression. This is very clear.
How long do you think you can hold out?
Forever. I think that Putin never will catch Ukraine, despite no matter how many soldiers he has, how many missiles he has, how many nuclear weapons he has. We Ukrainians are free people with a great European future. This is definitely like that.
The former president.
So there you go. How long can you hold out? Forever. Now, spoiler, that cannot be true, unfortunately. But, you know, love the fucking messaging. Fair play to you. That was where we were at. Now we had, let me just bring this up. We had Klitschko as well, obviously as a boxer. Vitaly Klitschko, you know, former heavyweight boxing champ. He's the mayor of Kiev, was, and he himself has been doing the rounds on social media. So he's been uploading videos, basically calling for help and aid. He openly, by the way, has said he wants NATO and Western intervention. This picture was going around. This is him donning a machine gun. Is there a more iconic photo right now from Ukraine? This is Mayor of Kiev, Vitaly Klitschko, defending his country. Now, the problem with that is, of course, like everything else, whop whop, it's your boy misinformation again. I mean, that is an image from a 2021 training day, just to let you all know. But, you know, he's out there. He's sticking around. We had reports today as well. There's another Ukrainian sports person returning back to the Ukraine, sort of take up arms. So, you know, it's working. The sentiment about resisting, bringing people back, sports people are coming back. People are now staying. The citizenry are stuck, essentially. There's been a lot of people saying, you know, look, we're stuck here. We're gonna have to do what we gotta do. Belarus has entered the game. For those who don't know, Belarus. It's kind of interesting because during the pandemic, the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, he gained in a ton of popularity because he was the guy, the optics of which he was stood there, wasn't he, in all of those meetings, and he was saying, look, who are the people who benefit from all these lockdowns and mandates? Well, it's the big businesses, isn't it? It's big pharma. This is bullshit. I'll never do that to my people. And everyone was going, wow, this guy's fucking based and red-pilled. And they were all loving him on the internet. But the problem is, of course, Belarus is essentially a Russian proxy. Belarus has always had very strong ties, and Lukashenko especially, to Putin's Russia. And so as a result, when the attacks started coming in, tanks actually came from Belarus. They were there and mobilized, and I believe that there were missiles being launched from Belarusian territory. Yep, you can see there they are. This is a sort of a problematic development because as of today, Belarus was sort of being held up as a neutral area to go. There's talks about potentially those peace talks taking place down at the Belarusian border, and the peace talks have been ongoing today, apparently. Have no idea how they've gone, but you can see that delegations have been assembled. There are some people, I mean, to move away from the doom and gloom for a moment, because I know all the fucking American government is salivating and licking their lips, and we're all, you know, are we going to be able to sell a ton of weapons to someone? To move away from the doom and gloom, there is a chance that the war is over in 2 days, depending on how these peace talks go. Now, I've had a lot of people reach out to me and go, Richard, you know, there's too much information to process. How do you think it's going to go? And remember, I'm not an expert. This is not my area of expertise. I'm just good at sort of disseminating, you know, just breaking down information and stuff. But, you know, my read on it is this. There's essentially going to be a number of things that absolutely have to be agreed to, because Putin definitely wants regime change. I don't think there is any doubt about that. And so I imagine the peace talks there's going to be 3 major stumbling points as I see it. And that is the first and foremost, which is ostensibly what this is all about, is going to be an absolute promise that Ukraine cannot join NATO. They can't join NATO, or at the very least, the membership is deferred for 5 to 10 years. Absolutely has to be a written, signed agreement. There can be no peace without that, otherwise it will go to regime change. And when we talk about regime change is the Ukrainian government falling, Zelensky either fleeing, being captured or killed, and another one of Putin's puppets being installed. That is the biggest thing that has to be on the table. And I am sure, by the way, NATO are probably going to encourage Ukraine secretly for that. I think we'll get to this. I think I've got it on my list of things to do. But Zelensky said today, we want to join NATO. We want to be in. We have to be in NATO. And the sooner the better. But that cannot happen. There's no way while this conflict is going, they're going to be admitted as a member. There's just no way. 2, there will have to be an end to all the hostilities in the Donbas region. If you remember, if you cast your mind back to the very first stream, I was telling you about how this happened with the annexation of Crimea and all these other issues. The Donbas region is in Lugansk and Donetsk, which is where the number of Russian separatists who want to be reabsorbed into Russia still idolize the Soviet Union. That's where we have had hostilities and fighting since 2013. Maybe even a little bit beyond. And the Ukraine government are deploying peacekeeping forces there to stop these separatist groups from committing acts of terrorism in the Ukrainian state. I'm pretty sure Putin, because he's declared them as independent, and his predicate for war was to act as a peacekeeping force for those separatist groups in the Donbas region, he's going to say the Ukrainian government has to agree to not be hostile towards them, which is essentially going to leave a terrorist separatist group largely unchecked within your borders. 3, this is also going to be a big one. Ukraine is going to have to phase out all the U.S. presence there. For those who don't know, there are a number of U.S. bases, and there's U.S. kind of chemical plants and stuff like that. Putin's absolutely going to want that to be gone, probably even as well an end to maybe even U.S. aid could be on the table. I think they're the big 3. If they're not agreed to, this conflict will only, I can't see it be ending in any other way than regime change. That's my take on it. So I think these peace talks are largely symbolic. It's almost like a big W for Putin. Zelensky even said ahead of these peace talks, I think they're a waste of time, but I'm going to them so people can see in the international community I at least tried. And Putin's going to turn around and say, I at least tried as well. He gets that under his cap, which is something I would almost certainly deny him while he's waging an aggressive war. But equally, I suppose if you want it to end, you have to at least try talks at some point. Yeah, the Russian economy took a massive hit. They didn't even open trade today and will close it to delay the destruction of Russian stocks. Do you think this pushes Russia too far to a point where they don't see any way out other than complete war? So, yeah, the Russian stock market didn't even open for trading today. For those who know, it's collapsed. It's down something like 1,700%. The ruble is now, for the first time, it's at a historic low where its value is below 1 US cent, I think, for the first time in its history. I've got all the economic breakdown. We're going to get to that and talk about the sanctions in a bit. But Do I think it'll force them into all-out war? Well, no. The economic pressure, I don't mind. It will impact the everyday lives of Russians. There will be starvation at some point if this doesn't come to a swift response. There's going to be some real hard times for the Russian people. My heart goes out to them. I know in my heart of hearts, the vast majority of Russians do not support this war. I do not believe that. Put it this way, the polling coming out of Russia right now says that 50% of Russians support the war. If that means that 50% of people felt comfortable openly defying Putin in a poll. It's always more than that in those states, in that kind of, when you have a despot. So it's just that people are afraid to tell the truth. They're from a time when you had Stasi-like secret police, KGB, recording everything you said and calling you a political dissident for even expressing an opinion in private. So no, I don't think it forces them into nothing but an all-out war. I think if anything, as we'll get to, we've actually had a prominent oligarch denounce Putin today and ask for peace because their money is getting fucked with. And some of these sanctions, Biden, to his credit, he's right. These are historic sanctions. You might think sanctions aren't enough, but these are historic sanctions, the likes of which have never been seen. I'm not just talking about Russia getting kicked out of the Eurovision Song Contest. These are going to really hurt the country and its industry for decades to come. A lot of people are going to lose a lot of money. Let's continue. These peace talks were alleged, as you can see. This was another one of the accounts I've been following. This is a veteran war journalist of 35 years. I think I recommended him in the first stream, but he's covered all the conflicts, Lebanon, Syria, etc., and seems to have a general good read on the situation, and it's been ahead of the curve of some major news networks with some breaking stories. Anyway, this was Zelensky on Telegram announcing. This was the translation. The result of the conversation with Alexander Lukashenko, that's the Belarusian president, we agreed that the Ukrainian delegation would meet with the Russian delegation without preconditions on the Ukrainian-Belarusian border near the Pripyat River. Alexander Lukashenko has taken responsibility for ensuring that all planes, helicopters and missiles stationed on Belarusian territory remain on the ground during the Ukrainian delegation's travel, talks and return. So in other words, Lukashenko, who is a Putin proxy essentially, and certainly more support with the Russians, he's saying it's safe to send your delegation here. We're not going to use it to take advantage of the situation. We guarantee your safety, and the troops and the armors and the missiles and everything that are deployed here, they're not going to act until the end of the talks. That's happening now. We don't know which way it went. But let's talk a little bit now about Putin, and this is the first time I've actually believed in this idea that he's unhinged. I always thought he was a kind of cold, calculating, ruthless guy, former KGB, but I've seen too much these past few days. So first of all, I urge anybody, and I've been sending the link of this to people to watch. You can go on C-SPAN right now, and you can watch Vladimir Putin's 60-minute state address to the state. It is rambling. It is unhinged. This is right at the start of all the hostilities. I'm just going to fast forward it a little bit so you can see he's slumped in his chair. The energy is like that restaurant scene in Scarface. Like it's crazy.
Interests of the people of Ukraine. The whole idea of the so-called
and it's all dubbed so you can understand it. The shit he's saying in this is mental. It's absolutely crazy. And so I was going with that, but then he obviously did some follow-up speeches, and this one is mad. Like, he called the Ukrainian government a collection of Nazis and drug addicts, right? Like, what the fuck? Here it is. I'll play it because even though it's in Russian, you can hear the word. Like, I think he says, like, narcoman. Like, it's ridiculous.
Обращаюсь к военнослужащим вооруженных сил Украины. Не позволяйте неонацистам и бендеровцам использовать ваших детей, ваших жен и стариков в качестве живого щита. Берите власть в свои руки. Похоже, нам с вами будет легче договориться, чем с этой шайкой наркоманов и неонацистов, которая засела в Киеве и взяла в заложники весь украинский народ.
So yeah, narcoman. Just crazy thing to say. It's like, coupled with all the other stuff I've seen, yeah, I think his box is gone. I mean, I really do. because then this happened. This is where we get to the nuclear question. So before, when he said, right, okay, so I want to give just a little bit of context, right? So I don't know if you remember Donald Trump, right? Don't know if you remember him. The media talked about him a little bit. So I want to remind you, right? This was something he did. Now, I never liked this. Diplomacy and foreign policy via Twitter is a fucking joke. It's one of the things I always hated about Trump, was that he would do these things when they weren't policy. He hadn't talked to anyone in government. He would just pick up his phone while he was having a shit or whatever, tweet out some absolute nonsense, and then we were all stuck with it. But this is when they were having tensions with Iran, and he said, he said, don't you ever talk to me or my son again, essentially. He said, never ever threaten the United States again, or you will suffer consequences the likes of which few throughout history have ever suffered before. We are no longer a country that will stand for your demented words of violence and death. Be cautious, right? So when Putin did his quote that we talked about a few streams ago, and he said, anyone who interferes with Russia will face consequences the like of which their country has never seen throughout history. I thought it was a callback to this. I thought it was his way of saying to America, it's all right for your fucking president to go off and say that and imply that. And this tweet alone spawned like 24 fucking think pieces. Is Trump unhinged? Is he threatening nuclear capability? Are we going to have a war in Iran? I don't know, Jan. So I thought Putin was doing a fucking callback, like for real, like, because obvious, you know, I thought it was his way of rubbing America's nose in it a little bit. But now with Narco Man, I don't think it was. And then when I was like doing that stream, I was going, I don't think he's really saying nuclear weapons, right? Because you'd have to be mad to say it. But then he specifically said he actually has put his deterrence forces, his deterrence Trent D'Arby, right? His deterrence forces, they're specifically the nuclear response forces, and he's put them on standby.
Уважаемые коллеги, вы видите, что западные страны предпринимают не только недружественные действия в отношении нашей страны в экономической сфере, я имею в виду нелегитимные санкции, о которых все хорошо знают, но высшие должностные лица ведущих стран НАТО. And what he's saying here is, see the translation, Western countries aren't only taking unfriendly economic actions against the country, but leaders of major NATO countries are making aggressive statements about the country. So I ordered to move Russia's deterrence forces to a special Russian regime of duty. So it's like, are you sure? Like, is that real? That's fucking crazy. And then, one of the other things that's been going on is, during all of these unhinged speeches he's been doing, he's been chewing up his own, like, counsel, his own advisors. There's that famous video of him basically, like, saying to his, like, foreign secretary, I think it was, you know, no, we're not talking about that. Like, really, and the guy's, like, nervous and fumbling over his lines. This is General Shoigu, right? The guy who's going to have to live with all of this shit and deal with all of this shit and do the bidding. This was his reaction to that fucking speech above. Look at his fucking face, homie. Like, look at it. He's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, bruh. He can't believe it. Like, he's fucking, you know, like, put it this way. I never put too much stock in, like, body language analysis or any of that. He can't look at that. Keep in mind, he's a Russian general. He's seen more shit than you could ever fucking believe. He knows more fucking horrifying secrets than you will ever come within touching distance of. You know what I mean? It's just that simple. And look at his face as he watches fucking Putin slumped in a chair call the Ukrainian government a bunch of junkies. Equally at home, it's been rough because for the Russian people, as I said, they've been protesting this. You know, there's a lot of anti-war sentiment. And like, as I showed you in a previous stream, Putin's approval rating is kind of cratering. It's going through the roof. Going through the floor, rather, not the roof. The roof would be up. The floor is down. But we've now got over 3,000 protesters at home have been arrested. 3,000 people who've just been, again, innocently, peacefully protesting, saying, no war in the Ukraine, please. 3,000. It's only going to go up. He is deploying, you know, armed police to disperse these protests. And you got to wonder, like,
How many fronts are you going to get yourself into? Well, it turns out because it's Putin, he's definitely just going to keep fucking doing this. Now, as I said, the financial component to this as of today is terrible. The ruble has created so much. We've now got like compound interest going. Russia has doubled the interest rate to try and halt the slump of its currency. Here it was holding steady, sort of just below $1.50. And you can see here it's gone to under $1 for 100 rubles for the first time. So as I said at the start, 1 ruble is now down to below a cent for sort of the first time in either a long time or indeed the currency's history, depending on what you read. I haven't had time to sort of check which one it is. My understanding is it's historic. So now they're trying to put up the interest rate. You can see the Bank of Russia has raised the rate from 9.5% after the ruble sank 30%. After new Western sanctions, and now put the interest rate to 20%. Meanwhile, that picture there, these are Russians queuing up to ATM machines to try and get as much of their money as they can. And we all know what happens economically when there is panic, when a currency starts to crater. People want to go and get their money and have it, and get it out of the banks because they think the banks are going to go under. That leads to the knock-on effect of the banks going under. There's a lot of problems ahead for the Russian people. We already talked as well about how the Russian stock exchange, it just didn't even bother to open to trade today. These moves have all caused JP Morgan to come out and basically say, yeah, the economy is, you've got a guaranteed recession waiting for you. They were the first Wall Street bank to sort of come out and make any statements to sort of assess the damage. And they've said, we tentatively assume the Russian economy will contract 20% quarter over quarter with seasonal adjusted annualized rate in 2 quarters, and for the year around 3.5%. But the margin of error for any such guesstimate is incredibly high at this point, and risks are skewed heavily to the downside. Moreover, we believe Russia's growing political and economic isolation, we're going to show you the sanctions in a moment, will curtail Russia's growth potential in years to come and lower Russia's trend growth to 1%, down from 1.75 previously. And this is what I mean. It's like, listen, I understand why the economic sanctions are there. It will be Russian people that are most affected by this. The oligarchs obviously will lose more money, but it will hurt them less because they're billionaires and multi-millionaires. The average Russian now is about to get into some dark shit. Al Jazeera did a compilation, if you like, greatest hits of all of the sanctions. I'll take you through the United States. These were some of them. They wanted to target the core infrastructure of Russia's financial system. So they sanctioned 2 of Russia's largest banks, the State Bank, Sberbank, and VTB. They also put on the list Otkritie, Sovcombank, and Novokombank, as well as some of the executives from that bank. All US banks have to sever their correspondent banking ties, which is the mechanism through which they do international banking trade, and they have to do it with Sberbank, who is the largest lender of money. So that's out, and it's got to be done within 30 days. In the European Union, they've been talking about freezing Putin's assets, as well as so him personally and his foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov. All of his assets are going to be frozen in Europe. He won't be able to gain access to them or do anything with them. I think it's one of the first times a world leader's been hit with personal sanctions by the European Union. They've also, as well, started to go after those oligarchs, particularly the energy oligarchs. But so far, they've held firm on not curbing any Russian energy imports. Previously, I've told you about how the Russian energy situation, that's the hard one for us to kind of bite the bullet on, so to speak, because we've had energy crises over here in Europe, particularly around the annexation of Crimea, where gas prices went up. The Ukraine gas pipelines are hugely important. The world is watching to make sure the flow of gas to neighboring European countries and beyond isn't impeded. And certainly, even in Britain, we're going to feel a rise in energy prices, probably where you live. You've been notified notified. I've had the email from my energy supplier. They've told me your energy prices are going to go up. Nothing we can do about it. It's just what we got to pay to get energy to you because of this ongoing crisis. And you can expect more of that. Japan, as I talked about earlier, they have said we're coming in with the sanctions, and they've gone along with, again, the financial institutions being sanctioned. They're also stopping any military equipment exports. They're just not going to be doing that anymore. And see there, this was from Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, said Japan must clearly show its position that we will never tolerate any attempt to change the status quo by force. South Korea, another major developed Asian country that have come along, and they have said they're going to tighten their export controls. So any item that qualifies as a strategic item, i.e. something that could be put into Russian infrastructure or the Russian war machine, they're going to look at not exporting that to Russia now. And that's obviously going to have the knock-on effect as Russia, if this continues, of being hugely negative to Putin's efforts. They also have agreed with the West to block the Russian banks from the SWIFT international payment system. The removal of SWIFT, we'll talk about that specifically in a moment, but that was the one that really surprised me. I didn't think that was going to go ahead. As you can see, my skepticism about that. There's too much Russian money going through countries like Germany, who, of course, were sort of sanctioned. They were fined. Bundesbank was fined in 2019 for laundering Russian money. So I honestly thought SWIFT being removed, or rather Russia being removed from SWIFT, would be absolutely off the table. And of course, the United Kingdom, the pig in a wig, Bojo, who fucking knew? Despite Russian money having infiltrated every level of British politics, we've gone fucking hard in the paint. I don't know what's happened to Bojo. Dare I say, he's almost acting like a fucking leader for 5 minutes. I don't know what's happened. It's like Invasion of the fucking Body Snatchers in Downing Street. We've put some of the maddest fucking sanctions out there, and publicly, I think I showed you the video, he said that Putin will never be able to cleanse the blood of Ukraine from his hands. We're talking about doing asset forfeiture. We're talking about taking oligarchs' property. We've had this situation come up, which I'll show you in a second, with Roman Abramovich, one of Russia's biggest oligarchs who owns Chelsea. He's having to sign it over to trustees to avoid it being taken away. We're not fucking around. We've also banned the Russian airlines, Aeroflot. Russia have responded by banning British Airways. It's pretty wild. Canada, Trudeau, enjoying a chance to also act statesman-like. I'm sure he's stayed away from condemning Putin arresting all of those protesters, though. I'm sure he would understand the inherent hilarity of him doing that. But they increased their sanctions as well. They went after 62 individuals and or entities, including members of the elite and major banks. They cancelled all their export permits. And Trudeau said in a statement today, in light of Russia's reckless and dangerous military strike, we're imposing further severe sanctions. These sanctions are wide-reaching. They will impose severe costs on complicit Russian elites. And you can see he did a little... There's the Canadian flag and the Ukrainian flag. Czech Republic, apologies for calling it Czechoslovakia at one time. Listen, I'm a boomer. It's hard for me to keep up. Too many changes. I apologise. The Czech Republic, they've obviously done what everyone else has done. They've banned the Russian airlines from coming in. They also said memories of a 1968 Soviet-led invasion of Czechoslovakia made the Czech stance tougher than some of the Western partners. We're a country which experienced the aggressive policy of Russia, or the Soviet Union as it was then, and our unique historical experience makes us much more sensitive to that. Taiwan, who you'll remember China wasted no time, they were like, yeah, listen, Russia and Ukraine definitely have peace in that because we like international commerce. Immediately deployed jets into Taiwanese airspace to see if anyone would fuck with them while they were getting their test on. And Taiwan have said, well, obviously, we're going to impose sanctions on Russia. Keep in mind, China's opinion is sanctions are never the answer. And actually, on the 23rd of February, they condemned the US for having sanctions that were cruel. We very harshly condemn such an act of invasion and will join democratic countries to jointly impose these sanctions, said Premier Su Tseng-chang. Asked about the sanctions, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, a major Apple supplier and Asia's most valuable listed company, said it had a robust export control system and would follow the rules imposed by the government. So that's going to have some sort of effect. Australia taking a break from locking people up in hotels, said that they're going to impose more sanctions as well, and they're going to follow the British way and the Canadian way, and they're going to target elites and oligarchs that live or travel or own assets in their country. ScoMo, or Scummo, as I'm sure you all call him, said the new sanctions are going to be placed against the oligarchs whose economic weight is of strategic significance to Moscow, and more than 300 members of the Russian parliament who have voted to authorize sending Russian troops to the Ukraine. In particular, he's going to target the politicians that voted for it. And ScoMo also came out and said, listen, a bit worried about this lack of a strong response from China. And as I showed you on the last stream, China, to sort of ease the financial hardship, they used to have strict export limitations and controls on Russian wheat. Jinping has lifted those to enable Russia to sell wheat to China unchecked in a bid to sort of gain some extra money for what it's losing from all of the global sanctions. New Zealand, they've just put the travel bans in. I mean, yeah, everyone's on that shit. And that's that. That was a list of the sort of first wave of sanctions that came in. There were, of course, more. This was the one I was talking about. The European Union came out and specifically said, in addition to the banking sanctions, in addition to the SWIFT stuff, we now ban the sale of planes and spare parts to Russia, as well as any technology that would be related to aviation and space. Europe exported 3 billion of such goods just last year. So that's a huge major hit to the Russian aeronautical industry, to the space program, to a bunch of stuff from infrastructure. Just while we're on that topic, one of the things I missed out from earlier while we were talking about Russians being increasingly unhinged, it's got to be said, it wasn't just the narco man comment. Yeah, here it is. So this was a report on CNN where, because of the sanctions, Dmitry Rogozin said, if you block cooperation with us, who will save the International Space Station from an uncontrolled deorbit that could fall into the United States or Europe? Question mark. Kind of doing this way, really like fucked up, weird, vague implication that they would tank the International Space Station and use it like some sort of, weapon. Bit mad. Just a mad thing that I noticed that was just said. And because of all the craziness, that wasn't even made a bigger deal of. Right, back to the sanctions. So obviously we had the aeronautical stuff going. On that note as well, if you're, and this affects me personally. I've got a friend who is, settled, has been in a relationship with a Russian woman, and currently they're separated, and it's looking like it's just going to be like that for a long fucking time now. And he's obviously very despondent because they're going to be just shutting, the airspace is shut down. You can't get to and from Russia. You can't. You're not. No one's going to be allowed to fly anywhere, and it's going to be like that for some time to come. So the EU across the board has imposed a blanket flight ban on Russian planes, according to the head of the European Commission. That was Ursula von der Leyen, we saw in earlier videos. We're shutting down EU airspace for Russia-owned, Russian-registered or Russian-controlled aircraft. All such planes, including the private jets of oligarchs, are now unable to land in, take off or fly from any EU nation. Russian planes have also been banned from UK airspace, because remember, we're not Europe anymore, are we? Brexit. Russia's biggest airline, Aeroflot, said it would cancel all flights to European destinations until further notice in a retaliatory move. So it's just, we're just locked. And this is one of the things, what you have to understand, one of the long-term repercussions of this, sanctions, no sanctions, peace, no peace. There's no one ringing this bell now. This is going to push Russia, and when we get out of the sanctions, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. We are going to end up into even pre-80s Cold War levels of Russian isolationism. They are going to be cut off from the rest of the world, not just in a real sense in terms of travel, but in a cultural sense. They're not going to be allowed to participate in sporting events. They're not going to be allowed in international commerce. Their business heads and thinkers are not going to be allowed to come into the country to speak and address people publicly. They're going to have to sell their second properties. And I don't like this. I got to be honest. I got no problem with you fucking with the oligarchs. I even got no problem with you maybe even doing an asset forfeiture, even though I'm generally against state asset forfeiture or police asset forfeiture as a rule because it gets abused. But there's almost no question that a lot of these Russian oligarchs have certainly gained these things by gaming systems or even nefarious means. It's the old meme, isn't it? The Russian meme about never ask me how I made my first million. Because you don't want to know, because it's never a good story. This is really bad. This is really bad because Russia are a superpower. Even with these sanctions, that's not going to change. And they're not just a superpower, they're a nuclear power. All we're effectively doing here is, with these widespread sanctions that are going to hurt the Russian people. So this is what's going to happen if Putin isn't overthrown, and I don't think he will be. You're going to end up with Russian isolationism. You're going to end up with the sanctions hurting civilians and Russian state media telling those Russian civilians the West are doing this. The West are the reason you're starving. The West is the reason why you don't have all of the amenities and services that you used to have. The West is the reason you can't travel, not the state. It's going to build a level of resentment when finally the West has been kind of penetrating that inscrutable, opaque Russian history and Russian culture, and they're going to withdraw. And all the while, they're going to have China, like fucking Grimer Wormtongue, whispering in their ear like this, yes, it's going to be fine. And that, even if Putin were to die tomorrow, that we're still stuck with all of this for a while to come. And it makes me sad. I don't want the Russian people to be any more negatively affected by that cunt that they have to deal with at home any more than they have to. It's already gone too far, and it's going further. And the sanctions are sad. It's a preferable alternative to an out-and-out war, but we have to understand what we're doing and what the consequences are going to be. We're pushing Russia out of the international community, and in doing so, the only nation that they're going to find as sort of an alliance outside of some of the satellite states that are ultimate proxies for the former Soviet Union ethos is China. I don't like that. I don't think that puts the world in a better place 10, 20 years from now. Yeah, this was just a confirmation. So this is off Ursula von der Leyen's Twitter. You can see she was very firm. I always love it when they do a tweet and they put a picture of themselves, you know, like it's a speech. Like, okay. First, we're shutting down the EU airspace. Yes, we know about that. Second, we will ban the Kremlin's media machine. Now, this is huge because we talked about Russia Today. I'm sorry I kept calling them Russia Times. You know, I'm tired. I'm going to have a scotch now and float down to Let's Laugh at American Island. They are going to ban Russia Today, Sputnik, and the subsidiaries, because they obviously have other smaller websites that are in that portfolio, and you're not going to be able to access them from Europe. That's that. It's going to be gone. And again, I don't know how I feel about this because, yes, they are certainly vectors for propaganda. Yes, they are certainly carrying water for the Russian state. But also, how long before we start shutting down people who aren't doing that and who aren't Russian propaganda for, I don't know, criticizing the fucking European Union, the European Commission? Who knows? I would much rather, even though I know that they're propaganda garbage, I know that, I'd much rather we weren't codifying into law that you can't access those sites and get access to that propaganda garbage. And then the other thing, third, they're going to target Lukashenko from Belarus. They're going to sanction Belarus now, which further encourages Belarus cozying up to Russia. Not that that was a problem. Not that that was going to be anything other than the outcome, irrespective of sanctions. That's really going to harm the Belarusian economy, and certainly is going to make them less inclined to warm to Europe and NATO expansion in the future. We finally had confirmation of the SWIFT removal. I already told you about SWIFT and what it does. A lot of people thought it was like a bank initially or a system of banks. No, it's basically what guarantees the transactional aspect of it. It stands for the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications. It's the messaging system that goes along with payments and cross-border payments. And as I said, I really didn't think Germany were going for this. So the countries that didn't want to do it were Hungary, spoiler, Orban. He likes Russia. and is a bit of a cunt. Just letting you know there. Cyprus is a front for Russian business in a lot of areas, certainly its banking system. Germany and Italy, and these are countries that all benefit from the Russian money. I did say earlier that, just to give you an idea about where we're at. This is the story from 2019. I do source this stuff where possible, and I do try and, stay in your lane. I do care about the accuracy of the information. This was, of course, the big story from 2019, that Deutsche Bank got fined massively for being involved in a 20 billion Russian money laundering scheme. So, obviously Germany were like, what if we didn't remove them from SWIFT? And I'm like, yeah, of course these motherfuckers are thinking like that. But they've actually gone ahead and done it. There was too much international pressure. To go ahead and remove Russia from this. And that's huge. I mean, that's like a really fucking big deal. We're now making them financial isolationists. We've also got the Nord Stream 2 pipeline being frozen. All of that palaver, all of that commotion about making that go ahead, and everyone going, well, look, Biden is cozying up to Russia. Why isn't the media on this? It's all over. It's all done. There's just no way this type of business can happen now. Meanwhile, also in the UK, going one further, Bojo the Bozo Bojo the Clown is he's saying, listen, we're not stopping with the sanctions. We're going to actually start investigating the money. We're going to create a task force to follow the Russian money. We're going to look at all the property deals you've been doing. Like, holy fucking shit, Bojo. Be careful, homie. Be fucking careful with that. Listen, you don't want to turn over those stones. Holy shit. Like, when did he grow a fucking set of nuts? Look at the state of the cunt. But anyway, this is what's happening. He's going to, as he said, quote, open up the, I can never say this, Matryoshka doll. It's like them little Russian dolls where there's a doll inside a doll and a doll of Russia-owned companies. Because obviously, as we know from the Panama Papers, what they do is they basically create a shell company that fronts a shell company that's registered to offshore where you can't get the records, in a tax haven, and then they start doing business in the UK, and you don't realize it's all a Russian proxy to fucking begin with. But they're going to start going after that. They're really going to hit the oligarchs hard. And the central thought process around this is, if you do this, the oligarchs are like, motherfucker, you fucking... This cunt, this fucking Putin. We had a good deal going. The UK was turning a blind eye. And now we're fucked. And it's working because as of today, literally just before I went live with the stream, we had Lord Lebedev. Lord Lebedev, he's the Russian businessman. He owns a number of media outlets, like the Evening Standard in London, The Independent. He owns a TV station. He's a former KGB officer, the son of a former KGB officer, I should say. So, this is like a big deal. And he took the Evening Standard, his London-based newspaper, and they ran this on the front page today. President Putin, please stop this war. And you can see here, it's people who've been caught in the violence. Powerful images of a 6-year-old girl while they're operating on her to try and keep her alive. That's fucking big. That's fucking, that's the type of pressure that these sanctions are meant to exert. Early signs are, if Lebedev is one of many, well, that works. I talked a little bit about Chelsea. We're going to get to all of the sports stuff in just a moment, but this is the interesting one. Roman Abramovich, one of the original oligarchs, one of the guys that everybody knows who this motherfucker is and knows some of the shit he's been involved in. Chelsea, one of the biggest clubs in Britain, one of the biggest clubs in London, was going to be part of that Super League thing, which, by the way, hilariously, I'm not saying this is an upside or anything, but I don't know if you read in the news, Juventus, Barcelona, and all of those clubs, and Real Madrid, they were going to try and start the Super League project again that they did, but this time they were going to allow that there was an ability for teams to get promoted into it, and obviously this has just completely fucked everything because of all of the fucking Russian money and Russian players, and the clubs have different priorities right now. But anyway, sensing all of the stuff that was coming out from Boris Johnson and the Tory government and their claims about what they were going to be looking at and what they were going to do and how they might seize assets, he said, I'm going to hand over the club to trustees. The trustees won't take the club. They're worried about it's going to be a front and they're going to get into trouble. So he said publicly, yeah, I'm signing it over to some trustees. Actually won't be anything to do with me, blah, blah, blah. And they're going, listen, hang on a fucking minute. We agree to nothing, Abramovich, mate. We're not getting involved in this shit. So he can't even give the club away right now. Like, there's all these fucking posturing going on. It's a complete clusterfuck. Based on what I've seen happen today, there could be some insane world where Chelsea get banned from, like, the Premier League and other international competitions. I can't imagine it's going to happen. I think it's an outside chance, but based on the shit I'm going to show you, it's not beyond the realms of possibility as long as Abramovich remains at the helm. So let's have a look at the reaction in the world of sports, right? So immediately, again, it's what I mean about it's like isolating Russia culturally. We said, okay, well, fuck this. You can't have the Champions League. There it was, the Gazprom, huge amounts of money, huge sponsorship deal going on. It was agreed that we were going to have the Champions League final in St. Petersburg. No, you're fucking not now. We've moved it to Paris. Go fuck yourself. And Russian ministers came out and said, yeah, all right, yeah, we kind of get it. It's sad. We're not saying we're happy about it or whatever, but it is what it is. But it didn't end there, obviously. There were a number of other reactions in the sporting world, including Formula One put a statement out. Such are the times in which we live. By the way, can I just say, maybe don't make political statements, Formula One, because you're on shaky motherfucking ground, aren't you? With that shit, this is what I mean. This is why I tell people in esports, be careful. Because if you say, I'll read you this statement by Formula One. This is that they were saying they were cancelling the Russian Grand Prix. We can't do it. It's only a short statement. They said, we are watching the developments in Ukraine with sadness and shock and hope for a swift and peaceful resolution of the present situation. The FIA Formula One World Championships visits countries all over the world with a positive vision to unite people and bring nations together. On Thursday evening, the Formula One, the FIA, and the teams discussed the position of our sport, and the conclusion is, including the view of all relevant stakeholders, it is impossible to hold the Russian Grand Prix in the current circumstances. So, turns out, Emiratis and, certain marginalised groups having how shall we say, less than good time in those countries, not to mention state-sponsored fucking terrorism and other fucking... No. It's all fine. That's all good. But this ground invasion in Ukraine is definitely too far for Formula One. Mental. Yeah, see you all in Qatar. So you had that. Then, let me get this other stuff, because this was just fucking... It just started to escalate very, very quickly as it happened. The first bit of news that came through was that Spartak Moscow had been progressing in the UEFA Cup, was going to be banned, and I think it was LB Leipzig that was in the previous round. They were going to go through in their place, and people were like, well, that's sort of weird. But now, right, this just escalated into... There's no Russian clubs anymore, or team. All the teams were threatening to boycott playing the Russian international team for all the fucking qualifiers. Russia, by the way, were one match away from qualifying for the fucking, championships. The World Cup, was it the Euros? One of the two major tournaments. Now FIFA and UEFA have just suspended all Russian clubs and national teams. Gone. Oh, sorry, two for the World Cup. My bad. Gone. You're just all gone. You just don't exist now. Gone. I don't know, I don't like this. I don't know. It feels weird. It feels fucked up. I don't know. It just feels fucked up. I get that sport and politics intersects, but you can't deny that these clubs exist. You can't skew competition. You can't deny the rights of Russian athletes. What are they doing realistically? Can we at least do a fucking head count and see how they feel about it? No, we can't. We're not gonna. Fuck you. You're out. You're done. Yeah, they did dope up in the Olympics. They got punished for that, a lot of them. I don't get it. I don't. And by the way, if you don't think there was ever widespread doping programs in fucking US athletes, holy shit. I don't know what to tell you. It's weird when, men in their fucking mid-20s suddenly develop the need for braces because their jaw is enlarging. Don't you think? So yeah, I don't know, man. This strikes me as like a pretty big, mad overreaction. Seems very strange to me that this is the way we're headed, but it's certainly the way we're headed. We're gonna literally cut them off from everything. This one will hurt. All the Finns will be loving this, the Finns in the chat. But the International Hockey Federation has come out. Think about that. It's all ice. The International Ice Hockey Federation has just banned Russia and Belarus. Gone. See the report here. The IIHF is not a political entity and cannot influence the decisions being taken over the war in Ukraine. We nevertheless have a duty of care to all our members and participants and must therefore do all we can to ensure that we are able to operate our events in a safe environment for all teams. Like, what do they think's going to happen? Like, you think the Russian hockey guys are coming strapped? I don't get it. I don't get what that means, but that was where they went. Then some of them were just silly. You had this, I think it was first reported here in Sports Illustrated. As you've seen before, Putin, he loved a bit of fucking judo, didn't he? And he was there, wasn't he, in his gi, and he was doing all that shit. They made him an honorary president of the International Judo Federation. They've took that away from him. He's gone. That'll show him. That'll change the outcome of the war now. Gone. This stuff's just crazy. Like, then there was some real wild ones. Like, let me see. I've tried to keep up with it because they're just coming in thick and fast. Like, anything that's like vaguely Russian is just getting got now. It's just going. Like, who does this? You know, we're still buying Russian oil, but US and Canada getting rid of Russian vodka. There was literal videos that was making me and they were just pouring Russian Standard down a fucking drain. Like, no, not the vodka. Holy shit, just gone. Like some Prohibition era bullshit. So I don't understand like what that, like, you hurt them by not buying the oil. Obviously we need to buy the oil. As I said here as well. Oh, wait, there was another one, wasn't there? Yeah, there was that. The one that really hurts. You're never gonna hear the hit song, Binky Binky Bong, in the Eurovision Song Contest. It's over, it's gone. They've been kicked out. This'll do it. On a very serious note, like, all of those things have functioned as a way for us to all come together, internationally speaking, and share a common interest despite having very difficult histories and cultures that might not always intersect with each other. We might be separated linguistically, geographically. These things, the sports, even stupid shit like the Eurovision Song Contest, they all serve a positive purpose. And what we're saying is, Russia just can never come back to play with the rest of the world based on something that their leader did. It's, I don't know. It's weird, and I don't think it's helpful, and I don't think it's helpful long term. We have to think about a time after this conflict where we're going to want to rebuild these relations at some point, because obviously it would be better if we did, right? But now we're making it increasingly hard. We're doing things that are unreasonable, I would say. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe I'm too soft. One last thing, and then we're going to get to dog shit American takes in a new never-ending segment for the internet. I just want to say, another thing that's been speculated about kind of wildly in the international community is Putin is doing this because he's ill or insane. And actually, a lot of people have been saying, apparently, when he's not on camera or meeting leaders, he spends no time in contact with anybody, right? Because he's mega paranoid about coronavirus, is what they're saying. He's super worried he's going to get it. Apparently, he's not vaccinated. He's worried it's going to kill him or something. And then this picture started doing the rounds today. It just makes you think, is all I'm saying. Like, I don't know if this is like maybe some like fucking Giga Chad power move. But, like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is him meeting with his top advisors. Like, what? Can you fucking speak up, mate? Pass the fucking salt, mate. All of this combined just makes me think he's gone fucking bonkers. Like, I think he's actually lost his marbles. I mean, loads of people went mad during the fucking pandemic. Why wouldn't it happen to a fucking world leader at some point? It makes sense. While we're talking about bonkers, let's get into the terrible world of the American fucking owned and dominated internet, where only Americans have the righteous opinions, and even a war between Russia and Ukraine is really all about Americans and how it affects America and how it affects the American political landscape. Both sides. Oh, he's doing both sides. The radical centrist, milady. Yeah, I am doing both sides. Both sides of the American political paradigm are fucking awful, populated by morons, and if you buy into that red-blue sports ball bullshit, you're a fucking moron too. Let's get into it. So I just want to start off. I did tweet this out. Somebody actually went and fucking got Ja Rule. You know the Dave Chappelle sketch? He's not a sketch. He's not a sketch. The Dave Chappelle sketch. Somebody went and got Ja Rule. Like, literally went out and, like, somebody tweeted at Ja Rule and said, what do you think about this opinion? You know, because obviously you can't make sense of it unless Ja Rule says something. Ja Rule came out and fucking actually said, like, war is not the answer. Thanks, Ja. Thank you, Ja. Thank you, Ja Rule. Like, that's it. Now we can all make sense of it. It's all done. It's all been achieved. I actually couldn't believe it. Like, when I saw it, I thought this is a fake, right? This is like a joke. No, it's actually real. Like, it's real Ja Rule. Really saying war is not the answer. I also just want to add... oh, Lord. I'll show it again, because it'll never not be funny. In a previous stream, I showed you the problem with the American media, and especially around war coverage. The fact is, they're never going to not be corporate adjacent. And when you're trying to cover a war and you know, cover the horror, but also just do right in terms of getting the information out and, you know, maybe facilitate, you know, the populace being informed, CNN just fucked it up, of course. And this was their the World War III brought to you by Applebee's, and it's just so fucking funny.
And a little bit of chicken fried. Cold beer on Friday night. A pair of jeans that fit just right.
Oh my god. A fucking twerking cowboy. So anyway, there were consequences for that as well. Just to let you guys know, the sort of marketing and advertising periodical Adage did a story. You're not going to be able to see it because it doesn't play nice with XSplit. But basically, Applebee's have pulled their ads from CNN while the coverage continues for the war. So as long as the war's going on, Applebee's are like, don't you ever show that again. So there you go. Now let's get to some dog shit American takes. Dean Obadiah has a radio show on Sirius. We watch Putin's horrific attack on the people of Ukraine in horror. Yeah, in horror, because it's horrific, mate. We already said that. Trump and much of his GOP view it as a playbook to wage more January the 6th attacks in the US to end our democracy. Bunch of fucking melts walking into a government building and stealing lecterns, full ground invasion from a sovereign nation and world power and nuclear power. It's all, yeah. There you go. Those two things are absolutely comparable. Now, you also may remember, during the last presidential run, you had someone called Marianne Williamson, and she was like just some mental hippie that was just running in the Democrats and was just saying crazy things. And one of the things she'd suggested was she would create a ministry of peace if elected president, and not a minute, and you know, she'd get rid of a Ministry of War and a Ministry of Defense, and she'd have a Ministry of Peace instead. And so she just decided, hey, remember me? Maybe an effort to understand dark psychic forces and create a Department of Peace aren't so silly after all. People are dead, Marianne. Take your Facebook Blossom Hill sipping bullshit and fuck off, thank you. We also had, I mean, this is just bonkers. I don't even know if I dislike this or not, but safe to say Sean Penn is mental. He's decided, I'm going to go to the war zone and make a documentary. He's literally, apparently he's on the ground now with a film crew. I don't even know what he's doing. Because, you know, celebrities, right? That's who we need. Send in the fucking celebrities. That'll help. That'll sort it all out. Jesus fucking Christ. I also played you, and I promise, guys, I will not play it again. It's not like the Applebee's advert. It's not funny. It's painful. But there was some absolutely awful slam poetry, wasn't there, by somebody called Annalyn McCord, an actor and novice Twitter poet, was defending her viral Putin poem. And what she says in this article, which again isn't playing nice with XSplit because of the transparency, she said, and I've got the clip from the article here. The reason she did the poetry to Putin, and it was about if I was your mother, you would have been loved so much you wouldn't have been a dictator. She said, I know how I could easily have moved in the direction of becoming a dictator myself, she said. If certain circumstances of my life were different, were I a little less bent toward healing and more toward vindication, I could have been a darkly powerful person. Just let that sit there. These people are so fucking crazy, dude. I also saw a certified Reddit moment, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this assessment. So, listen, my view is this. I don't think Trump was a perfect president by any stretch of the imagination. I also didn't like the way he threatened to withhold military aid from Zelensky, predicated on this Hunter Biden thing, which also should probably be investigated at some point. Won't be. But it's worth noting, you will see a lot of people say, he withheld aid from the Ukraine, it's actually Trump's fault. He also was the first president since the annexation of Crimea to sell them weapons, which he did on multiple occasions, which he got criticised for in the mainstream press for encouraging a war. So he did 2 sizable sales of American military technology to the Ukraine. Just another reason why this whole Putin puppet narrative absolutely doesn't hold up if you just look at any of the fucking basic elements of what he did when he was president. Most notably, of course, the conflict in Syria, where he went in and defended Syria, which Putin absolutely didn't want. You wouldn't even have been there in the motherfucking first place. So, regardless, there's been a number of people who have said Biden would things have been different if Trump was still in. In fact, Trump at CPAC just said the other day, this wouldn't be happening if I was president. And I have to say, my read is he's right. And I'll just qualify why. I don't think Putin respects Trump, even though that's what Trump says Putin does. But the reality is he knows he can get Trump round a table, and Trump will be a little bit more pragmatic than the Dems. The Dems have made it abundantly clear that they don't have any interest in sort of any peaceful negotiations with Russia. They've called him an existential enemy. They've been lying about the election interference. They've called Trump a Putin puppet. They've certainly been pushing the NATO thing and gassing up Ukraine and encouraging conflict there. You know, I just don't think there was... I think in Putin's mind, there's like, I've got no relationships with America until we get somebody else in. This Clinton DNC apparatus is no good for me. And so as a result, I think he specifically has said in his speeches that a big part of why he's attacking the Ukraine is that it's not just NATO membership, it's NATO membership with a hostile American government behind them, and he will not allow that to be on his border. So I don't think that would be happening under Trump. But anyway, certified Reddit moment, whether you can agree or disagree with that, those are my own personal thoughts. That's editorializing. There's no way of really knowing. But a certified Reddit moment I saw. So this is on Too Afraid to Ask, are we relieved Trump is not president today? Over 13,500 comments because there were Trumps in it and all the fucking milady, put down the katanas and fucking desperate to get in there. This is a gilded comment, 4,099 upvotes. Biden is worthy of criticism in so many ways, but the way he's handled this situation has basically been 9 out of 10. Let that sit for a moment. It's been so good that it's hard to appreciate because of how smoothly it has been handled. 1, NATO is truly reunified and is acting together against Russia. 2, European NATO members are now planning to spend substantially more on defense, likely exceeding commitments they had shirked for years. By the way, when Trump was trying to bully NATO into spending more in defense, that was considered universally bad and condemned in the mainstream US press because Trump wanted it, so they wanted the opposite. 3, Finland and Sweden are now seriously considering accession to NATO, meeting with NATO over Russia next week. By the way, Putin has said if Finland and Sweden join NATO, they're next. So Just putting that, I mean, again, more indication that he's fucking out of his mind. 4, Putin had zero element of surprise. The ongoing declassification of intelligence ruined whatever subterfuge he may have hoped to have. Definitely remember point 4. 5, this move has helped restore some faith in US intelligence after Colin Powell lied to the UN in 2003. 6, by letting NATO lead, it allowed Germany room to its own choosing not to certify the Nord Stream 2. But war is unpredictable. It's hard to say where this will lead, but it's hard to understate how well Biden has handled this very, very complicated situation until now. Anyone who thinks another president would have done better doesn't remember who was on the ballot. Putin would have done this either way. So, okay, right, well, 9 out of 10, says the Redditor. Let's just start with something that I think wouldn't get you a 9. Perhaps leaking US intelligence to China and then China giving it to Russia ahead of the conflict. Maybe that would disqualify you from getting a 9. I don't know. But that's exactly what fucking Sleepy Joe actually went and did. This is in the New York Times. The US met with China over 3 months to present intelligence showing Russia's troop buildup near the Ukraine and to urge Beijing to help avert war. China's officials rebuffed the US and shared the information with Moscow. Are we on an 8 now? Is that can we knock it down to an 8? Maybe. We watched that utterly disastrous press conference where he nearly accidentally said he was going to fucking send troops in because he couldn't keep track of which question he was answering or who was asking it. I'll also just add, right, in times of crisis, I don't know, I want my leaders present. Can we do that? Well, actually, this weekend, as Kiev was being sieged and Putin was talking about nuclear deterrent, Joe Biden fucked off to his fucking Delaware house again. This is from the White House press corps schedule. The president and the first lady have traveled to Wilmington, Delaware, where they will remain over the weekend. He's out. He's gone. He's not even fucking present. He's, over the weekend while all those situations were advancing. Can we knock him down to a 7? Redditor, milady, can we do that yet? Just absolutely ridiculous. Maybe Reddit, not the place to go to get your geopolitical analysis. Remember, he said it can't be understated how well Biden's dealt with it. I think he's absolutely dealt with it terribly. And I suppose, by the way, it's probably worth mentioning as well, and I don't think there's any fucking doubt in my mind about this, the way they handled the withdrawal of Afghanistan. And the way that within hours, Afghanistan was back under Taliban rule and the president was literally killing kids, blew up children in retaliation because of failed intelligence and the fact that he's such a cunt and wanted to look strong and have his little moment that he was like, yeah, well, don't worry, we got some of the terrorists. Yeah, I'm going to say that maybe Putin looked at that fucking incompetence and thought, you know what? Even if the Americans do get involved, I think we're going to be fucking okay. But it's not just Reddit that was having a certified president. The Hill, Biden shows decisive leadership on Ukraine. Again, I'm failing to see what's decisive about fucking up the whole thing in the first place and then fucking off to your home on the weekend because your adrenochrome's wearing off. That's a joke, QAnon viewers. Yeah, that's not real. Just look at this nonsense. President Biden is handling the Ukraine crisis skillfully, leading a coordinated Western response, setting the public agenda and shrewdly putting out classified intelligence, letting the world know what the Russians are up to. The president has shown a smart strength, a contrast to Afghanistan last summer, where a necessary policy was marred by a careless withdrawal. Fuck this garbage. None of this is actually based in fucking reality at all. In fact, by the way, while everyone's jerking off about how, Biden's actually released classified intelligence to the world, so now Russia hasn't got the drop on anyone, meanwhile, while leaking intelligence to fucking Russian allies because he's a fucking idiot and not fit for office, I just want to point out that actually fucking Anonymous has done more than the US defense, than the US government. They actually leaked the database of the Russian Ministry of Defense website and have engaged in a number of cyber attacks that have fucked up essential Russian infrastructure components at this time. Turns out Anonymous are actually active participants on the right side of the war doing shit the American government won't do. But yeah, 9 out of 10. It's all good. I should have mentioned this earlier, probably, with the fake footage that we've had, but this is just so stupid. Only sort of American Facebook boomers could really fucking fall for it. This is, again, imagine this, Cecilia D'Anastasio. I think she's leaving. Oh, no, this is one of her first stories, I think, at Bloomberg, right? Because she left Wired. Facebook gaming was dominated by live videos of the Ukraine invasion, but they were actually clips from the military sim Arma 3. The videos had a live concurrent audience of over 110,000 people and were shared 25,000 times. Many ran for hours. 110,000 people watching what they thought was war footage that was really Arma 3. Mental. Once that report went out, because everything's just ridiculous and awful, the makers of Arma 3, it's just so dumb. The makers of Arma 3 said, "Dear Arma community, beware that lately quite a few videos from heavily modded Arma games surfaced, tagged as videos depicting the current Ukrainian conflict. We're in touch with the media to help fact check such videos." Well, that's good. We're all going to be okay. I won't go down my usual cynical road about how really this is all good publicity and Arma are punching the air because now people know they exist. I'm not going to do that. I won't do it. It's funny enough without it. Then, if you think all of this is going to fucking change the war, all of the efforts, all of the sanctions, you were wrong, idiot, because really, this was the pivotal moment. Someone has donated a Shibalon NFT to the Ukrainian government. That's it now. Now they've got the consolidated wealth to fight against the Russian forces. And just in case you're under any doubt about how powerful an NFT this is, it's based on a mythology in which Elon Musk was granted genius powers by an alien who also had created Bitcoin. It's been endorsed by Soulja Boy, the game, and other celebrities. That's it. It's over. And you can see here, the Ukrainian government has $4.3 million in their Ethereum wallet. Watch out, Putin. Also, as well, the media, you can imagine. I showed you a video in the last stream of Tucker Carlson making a fucking fool of himself, which was basically the monologue he did was, and it was prior to the invasion, you shouldn't hate Vladimir Putin because he doesn't eat dogs. I mean, absolute bonkers. And because essentially the cunt is a little bit shameless, there is no getting away from that. Even if you might fuck with him occasionally and listen to a monologue or whatever, or you might not think he's all that bad. He's like all these news anchors. He's shameless. He'll just pivot. And so, after saying we shouldn't get involved with Russia, we shouldn't have a war in Russia, we definitely shouldn't do anything in Russia, we shouldn't hate Putin because at the end of the day, Putin doesn't eat dogs. And also I showed you a video of Tucker Carlson saying, I'm rooting for Russia. He literally said that in 2019. He then pivoted and basically was saying Joe Biden was wrong to not be tougher on Putin. I'll play you some of it. I don't know if I'll go the full distance.
Analysis as we could of the invasion of Ukraine. It was then in progress. It still is. The war at that point was less than 24 hours old, and it seemed disrespectful and wrong to use the deaths of people on the ground as a partisan cudgel. War is horrifying, of course, but it's also a grave and profound thing. You ought to stand back in awe for a moment before you start drawing convenient conclusions from the suffering you see. Death is a mystery. Acknowledge that. That's how we feel. Joe Biden's allies in the media do not feel that way. They use the opportunity to attack their political opponents immediately, as they always do. They have no restraint and no shame. We're grateful not to be them. So that was last night. Tonight, it's fair to note the obvious. The invasion of Ukraine is a humiliating defeat for Joe Biden. He's our leader. He staked this country's reputation, billions of dollars, and the full force of the U.S. government on preventing Vladimir Putin from invading Ukraine. Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine anyway. And America is diminished by that. It's not the first time Joe Biden has done something like this. Less than 6 months ago, Biden oversaw an almost indescribably chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan.
True.
He left American citizens behind. He armed the Taliban with advanced weapon systems on the way out. It could not have been worse. So here you have two historic foreign policy debacles in under a year. Is there a precedent for that? What's the message of it? Well, weakness, obviously, Republicans often say that, but as usual, don't go far enough. Weakness? Well, North Korea is weak. They literally have famines. People starve to death in North Korea. That's weakness. But they're still a nation we have to contend with because they bite. A venomous spider is weak. You can crush it, but you're still afraid of it because it...
Does anyone remember the last time North Korea bit anything? Basically, if you're not South Korea, like...
We do not bite, and that's the problem. We're not simply weak. The United States government under Joe Biden is ridiculous. It's pompous, it's self-involved, it's long-winded, and fatuous. It's not so different from the fading old man who leads it. There's no hiding this. The rest of the world sees it clearly. So do many Americans. If watching the invasion of Ukraine this week made you feel a little sick, this is probably why. Of course, you felt sorry for the Ukrainians being killed, but you also sense that this was a genuine disaster for us.
You'll also notice there's the video that's being run down there.
In America, and you're right, it is. Joe Biden is quickly draining the reservoir of America's credibility and power that has accumulated over centuries of wise decision-making. Like the U.S. Treasury, this is not Joe Biden's capital to spend. He is squandering something that others made. How much is left at this point? You hate even to think about it. Someday we're going to find out. So the problem here isn't complicated. Joe Biden broke the oldest rule of all. Don't make threats you can't back up. You'd think he'd know that if he'd actually squared off against Corn Pop at the public swimming pool in
Sorry, Corn Pop will never not be funny.
Wilmington 60 years ago, but he never did. So he doesn't know that if you say something serious, you had better mean it. It is reckless to tell obvious lies. If you do that before long, and it happens very quickly, in fact, people figure out...
It is reckless to tell obvious lies, says Fox News anchor. I mean, listen, I could do this. I could just satirize every sentence in this monologue. It's fucking insane.
That you can be ignored. You're not a superpower. You're a joke. And that's why you never, under any circumstances, say anything like this.
The purpose of the sanctions has always been...
Now, remember, he used this clip before. He used it in the previous monologue, where he condemned them for even saying this in the first place. I showed it to you. The VOD is still there. He showed this clip and went, Kamala Harris is a mess. She is. She's incompetent. She is. But why are we even talking about Putin? Why are we even flexing? There's nothing to worry. And now it's good. You never say things like this unless you're willing to follow. Like, fuck me. It's so insane to do this 180. Like, it's mad. It's days apart. Your audience must remember. They must have a memory. Like, it can't.
Deterrence. But let's also recognize the unique nature of the sanctions that we have outlined. These are some of the greatest sanctions, if not the strongest, that we've ever issued.
The president believes that sanctions are intended to deter.
As to the sanctions, the most important thing we can do is to use them as a deterrent, as a means of dissuading Russia.
It is hilarious that Biden literally came out at that disastrous press conference after all of this and said, we knew that they wouldn't stop Putin. We knew it wasn't a deterrent at all. He's such a fucking... Please, someone stop him.
From engaging in further aggression.
Now, if you saw the dates, you notice those clips are from recently, in some cases just days before Vladimir Putin showed precisely how meaningless our sanctions actually were.
What else? What else was said days ago? I don't know.
Wearing her stupid little mask on Monday. She's a buffoon. You knew that. Now it's obvious that her buffoonery is a real peril for the rest of us. No one in the White House seems to understand this. It's life's most obvious lesson. So here is Joe Biden from today telling you that actually these sanctions, the greatest, most deterrent sanctions ever, were never intended really to deter anything. Sorry if you took us seriously the first time. We didn't really mean it.
No one expected the sanctions to prevent.
Yeah, this is still mental, by the way.
This is going to take time.
I just want a competent person in American politics. Because anyone find one?
Russia know what he's brought on them. That's what this is all about.
Who gives him these scripts? Do they not think we have access to YouTube? Or maybe they're just hoping Google will scrub it by the time he holds another press conference. You just told us on Monday that the purpose of these sanctions was to deter the invasion of Ukraine. So at the very least, acknowledge they didn't work as intended.
You said we shouldn't hate Putin,
Oh, the vaccine prevents transmission.
You said it was going to be okay,
Just
Tucker.
tell the truth. People will understand, but they lie every time. Now they're telling us, Putin knows what's coming. We'll get him next time. Right. No one believes you anymore, Joe Biden.
Or you. So yeah, Tucker just did a fucking pivot. Mind you, I can stomach a pivot more than I can stomach this. The level of just sort of insane, deranged conspiracy theories around Trump, and MSNBC uncritically ran this, which is that actually Putin is invading Ukraine now when Trump isn't in office, because Trump enabled him to do it while he was in office, because Trump was definitely a puppet of Putin, which is why he didn't invade Ukraine while he was in office, because he was waiting. I don't know.
Trump was installed as the president of the United States in order to weaken the alliances that were preventing Putin from achieving his goals. Alliances like NATO, our relationship with our European partners, our relationship with Ukraine. Trump was put in as a bulldozer, and he was also put in, as Malcolm said, as a bulldozer to the Constitution, to our system of checks and balances, to our system of institutional trust, and the unwillingness of people in the United States to confront the brokenness of those institutions, whether through financial corruption in recent years or age-old systemic problems like the endemic racism that holds our country up, has contributed to that. And Fox News, in this sense, is just an...
Now, listen, just before I let her play it out, I've had conversations like this from just coked up people in a bathroom. Like, you're just sharing lines with strangers. And so anyway, like I was saying, he was installed like a bulldozer to ruin the Constitution. And it's like, no, this is what passes for serious political analysis on MSNBC. It's like, holy fucking shit. We'll go back a little bit.
Of those institutions, whether through financial corruption in recent years or age-old systemic problems like the endemic racism that holds our country up, has contributed to that. And Fox News, in this sense, is just an extension of that long-running destructive pattern.
Absolutely perfect. And it didn't stop there, obviously. I mean, you know, the bullock or the bulwark, depending on how you're inclined to pronounce things. Bill Kristol came out. Trump was a dime store Putin. He wasted no time there, whatever that means. He went on to clarify. He said, by which I mean Trump was more Putinist than not in his character, his corruption and his conduct. Dime store, yes, in so many ways. But a dime store Putin is still a Putin. Don't remember a land invasion of neighbouring Canada, which would have been the only comparable thing, really, but fine. Then you had this. This is a member of the US. Wait, no, she isn't actually. She ran, but she didn't get in, I think. So this is just a blue check lawyer. Remember, Twitter cares about disinformation and misinformation on its platform. That's why all of the things I showed you were all still on Twitter. No, it doesn't give a fuck. You can see here. I think Trump was never legitimately elected. His win was a Russian op. I also think the tagged FBI has been actively covering up the truth, because their failure to stop it is embarrassing. DFG was never the actual president, and he sure never acted like one, and still doesn't. Okay. More reasonable takes. Washington Post columnist says, hey, why don't we just ban all Russian athletes? Just ban them all. Just kick them all out the country. Fuck them. Get them out. Seems reasonable. Same people, by the way, who are, nobody is illegal. I can't even believe Trump would use that word. I'm getting the vapors. Now it's kick all the Russians out of your fucking country. What next, like? Should we make some nice little comfy homes for them while we're waiting? Mental. And anyway, Henry Olsen Washington Post. I wonder what would happen if the West told all Russian athletes their president's illegal and immoral war means they're not welcome in our country anymore. No Russian NHL, football, or tennis players, so long as the war and claims on the Ukrainian territory exist. And then, yeah, we kicked all the clubs out. What next? Sad times. An NBC executive went one further. This is Mike Singleton of NBC. Expel all Russian students from the United States. Kick them out! Kick them out! Even though, by the way, the fact that they're studying abroad and in the West means almost certainly they are sympathetic to the plight of the Ukraine. By the way, another thing. Stop calling it the Ukraine, Richard. I'm sorry, I'm a relic. It is Ukraine. But I grew up at that time. I'm sorry. But anyway, close the Russian embassy in Washington. Expel all the diplomats. Seize all property, buildings, homes, and apartments. And you go, he's going to say owned by Russian oligarchs. Oh, no. By Russian citizens in the United States. Just take it all away. Not the oligarchs. No, anyone with a Russian passport. You've lost everything now. That'll teach you. NBC. Where no one is illegal. Now, obviously, as well, in the middle of a war, journalists would have to fucking throw a pity party, right? Because the journalists are the most oppressed class in all of America. Oh, no, won't someone think of the journalists? People literally fucking dying, literally getting blown up, literally getting, you know, losing everything and probably losing everything for some time to come. But NPR, you know, these American journalists would just all in. Check this. Fuck yeah, I need it. I'm having this. Russia's attack on Ukraine means there's a stressful news cycle ahead of us. The reality of conflict is always a shock to the system. Here are 5 ways to cope, and here's somebody with dyed green hair on a bed. Oh no, I'm reading about war because I'm a fucking American. And the only types of war I know about is the type CNN tells me about, where we were doing it for the right reasons. We were toppling bin Laden, even though he's never even been in Iraq. And there's the brain, fittingly outside of the body, going, oh no, no, the stress. Someone in the chat, why am I making fun of this? Why am I making fun of Americans talking about the stress of a news cycle when people are being killed? Is that a serious question? Oh, I guess we should fetishize self-care. People are being fucking murdered, you melt. Are you fucking serious? You can't be serious. Why am I making fun of this? Because fucking Americans that don't have to worry about anything except like their fucking waistline. You know, like, are we real? Wait, what? If someone is being killed, then anything less than that is put aside and doesn't matter. Okay, let me reframe that. If people in a foreign country are being massacred and butchered by an invading ground force, and your contribution as a news outlet is to go, listen, guys, it might be stressful for you reading about it, so let's all have a lie down. But, of course, you all want to give your dog shit takes on social media. This is real fucking easy. If you can't handle reading about war, put your fucking phone down. That's it. Problem solved. I don't need, oh, no, look how tough it is for us, the Americans. Won't somebody think about the fucking Zoomer Americans? Listen, tell you what, mate. If you need to fucking lie down from war coverage, don't watch my fucking stream covering the war. Fuck off. NPR have figured it out. We must have self-care, right? We must think about how it affects us and my fees, because, you know, the real shit doesn't matter. Look, here's their advice. I'll give it to you. They've helpfully, for the Zoomers there, including that one who just got banned, helpfully, they've used emojis, because, you know, sentences are fucking tough, aren't they? Breathe, lung emoji. If you're feeling your body contracting or overheating, this is from looking at war coverage on social media, step away from whatever you're doing and take a deep breath. Running emoji, get moving. Why not do something that feels good for your body and gets you out of your head? Go for a walk, a jog, or a run. Food emoji. Nourish yourself. The kitchen is a safe space. Not when I'm fucking in it. And not for me. Fucking. Right, well, just have a 6-pack. Far from safe. But anyway, the kitchen is a safe space for a lot of us. The kitchen's been hurting me for fucking 10 years. You can go look at old pictures of me. The kitchen is not my friend, but whatever. The kitchen is a safe space for a lot of us. Maybe this is the time that you finally recreate a family recipe, or maybe learn how to make a prettier pie. Yeah. Stay connected. Friend emoji. When the news is scary, it's easy to get lost in our own heads. Reach out to loved ones instead. That could look like sitting down to write an actual letter to a relative, spending time with neighbours, or playing games. And this one, and I strongly recommend this to NPR journalists especially, log off. Remember, it's okay to not be plugged into the news 24/7. By turning off your alerts or just scanning the headlines once a day, you may be able to feel more grounded and prioritise yourself and loved ones. Top reply, how are the Ukrainians coping? Yeah, how indeed, which was the whole point. Imagine being upset at me pointing out the absurdity of that. Holy shit. The Zoomers are really fucked up. Actually, on that note, just to let you know how fucked up they are and how things are only going to get worse. Like, what comes after Zoomers, by the way? Have we already decided what comes after Zoomers? Do we know? Not Doomers. Because if Zoomer is Z, do we have to go back to, like... Because there's no way it's Generation Alpha. These guys are going to be fucking pathetic. Like, they'll have to skip A out. We have to go to Beta immediately. I'll take that. I'll take Generation Beta. That will make absolute sense. They just made, this has nothing to do with this, but they've now made it so TikTok has 10-minute videos, right? And I saw this tweet. I don't even know who this is. I don't even know how this came across my timeline. Someone must have retweeted it. But TikTok has now put its max video length up to 10 minutes. 10 whole minutes. I need you to think about that. I need you to think about how 2,000 of you have sat here and listened to me break down the Ukrainian situation and news and give some analysis and expertise. We're coming in on 4 hours right now. When this gets edited, it's going to be about 4 hours total. There's not a lot to cut out, not a lot of fat to trim. We've all talked about a lot of stuff. We've gone back, right? So 10 minutes. 10 minutes used to be the joke on YouTube. You had to hit 10 minutes. And those were the short, low-effort videos to get your money. 10 minutes. To Generation Zoomer, 10 minutes is an eternity. Big day for people who don't know how to get to the point. And people are like, they're still going to make a part 2. Because if you don't know, on TikTok, they always do a TikTok. And then they go part 2 and it's in the thing underneath the part 2. And fantastic for people who aren't funny. Not every video will be 10 minutes. Like, they love this shit. Their attention deficit disorder is just being propped up by all the fucking apps and fucking programs they use, the way they get information. What a mess. That you look at 10 minutes and think that's like a long investment of time. But anyway, irrelevant. Just wanted to put that out. We've got real problems if we let these Zoomers. Real problems. This one, just in line with the whole fucking fetishization of self-care. So this is Julia Loffy. It's Puck News now, but she used to be a Washington correspondent for someone else. Anyway, whatever. Julia Loffy. I spend all day trying to stay on top of developments in Ukraine, to answer TV anchors' questions as rationally and analytically as I can. And then I stop to talk to a friend in Moscow or in Kiev, and I'm crushed all over again. I want to weep and vomit at the same time. I don't write this for pity. This is my job. I am safe and not under bombardment or threat of brutal occupation, but for me, like for all people and journalists with blood and heart ties to both these countries, this story hurts me unlike anything before. It can be hard to contain. Lots of crying single tear emojis. I'm not saying this for pity. Don't fucking post it then. You don't have to. No one cares. You want to cry and vomit on yourself. I wake up every morning like that, you cunt. What are you talking about? I call that 8 a.m. Fucking bellend. Then we had, The View. The View sure is awful, isn't it? So just like 2 weeks ago, I know it feels like ancient history, we had Whoopi Goldberg going, yeah, that Holocaust though. On national television in America. Yeah, it weren't all that, was it? You're like, holy fucking shit, people go to prison for this in Austria, you mad bitch. We had that, right? And then Joy Behar, who's like 80 years old, gave the most boomer take shit I ever fucking saw in all my life, right? If you ever want to know about the self-absorbed narcissism inherent in the American media landscape, she nailed it. She absolutely nailed it, right?
50,000 Ukrainian.
Right? Remember, this was the day, the 24th, that the war just happened. What's the View got to say about the war and who it's going to affect?
Estimates are 50,000 Ukrainians will be dead or wounded, and that this is going to start a humanitarian crisis, a refugee crisis in Europe. We're talking about 5 million people that are going to be displaced. I mean, it's heartbreaking to hear what is going to happen.
Well, I'm scared of what's going to happen in Western Europe, too. You know, you plan a trip, you want to go there. I want to go to Italy for 4 years. I haven't been able to make it because of the pandemic. And now this, you know, it's like, what's going to happen there?
That's it. She can't have a holiday. She can't make it to Italy, man. Like, and that's the problem, really, with all of this. You know, when you think about it, no, listen, guys, when you think about it, she's been wanting to go to Italy for 4 years. 4? It's not like 1 or 2. It's like 4, you know. She wants 4 whole years. She's not been able to get to Italy. And just as the pandemic starts lifting, but bloody fucking war. Bloody war. You know, it's hard not to feel sorry for her because Joy is about 80 years old. Maybe she'll never get to Italy. Because those stupid, sniveling Ukrainians being invaded. Yeah. I mean, won't somebody think about the wealthy white woman on American television? Yeah, I put it in perspective, me. I'm empathetic. She must have got a tap on the shoulder from the news network. They were like, we've done internal polling, Joy, and your take about needing a holiday. It didn't go over very well with the general populace. It didn't go over very well. So can you say something today? Can you say something today that brings people back to the room? Unfortunately, she's now going to be able to win over the American people again, even though she said Ukrainians dying was worth less than a holiday for her, because now she said, actually, Trump calling Putin a genius, it's all about white supremacy. So she's back in the room, she said the magical words, and she's going to be fine and get away with it and not be suspended or chastised or anything like that. Great job, corporate America, you've done it. White supremacy, it is the get out card. Don't worry. Not the actual practice of it. I mean, just saying that it exists in America. This one hurts. This will hurt you. If you thought the slam poetry was bad, this will hurt you. It's going to hurt you. Are you ready to be hurt? Going to let it sit on the screen for a while. You've all read it, and now I'm going to read it. This is Matthew Dowd, a man who describes himself as a thought leader. He's going to break it all down for us because you know what? You know what, YouTube comments? You're right. I should stay in my fucking lane. What do I know with my balance back and forth and meticulously researching history, even a willingness to correct myself in the past, and I might have played things down on previous streams and try and give my viewers all of the facts and try and actually not get sucked up in propaganda and critically assess everything while all the streamers you love are just out there repeating fucking state media. You're right. I should stay in my lane. And if I did stay in my lane, I'm sure I would arrive at nuanced and deep conclusions like this thought leader, which is, let me make this perfectly clear. In fact, I wonder, can I put the mic? Okay, let's do it. Clip this, black that out, like it was actually me coming up with this idea, and then they'll never be able to criticize me again. In fact, just make this a clip without that there. And everyone will go, wow, Richard Lewis really understands geopolitics. Let me make this perfectly clear. Putin is Emperor Palpatine. The Ukrainian people and all those who stand up for democracy around the world and here in America are Ray Skywalker, Jyn Erso, and the Rebel Alliance. Pick a side. I mean, you know, listen, also I can just do my own, and I've never read Harry Potter, but I reckon I could do it. Let's see. Let me make this perfectly clear. Putin is Voldemort, he who should not be named. The Ukrainian people and all those who stand up for democracy are Harry Potter, Hermione, that bird, Hagrid, and the ginger kid. Pick a side. Nailed it. Nailed it. Fucking nailed it. What are you going to do now? Love this one. Did love this. Oh, God. Thought this was great. As you know, because I do a lot of stuff that breaks down the media, there's one person I can't quit, and that is Jennifer Rubin. Oh, my God. She's too good. She's too good. If she didn't exist, you'd have to fabricate it to make the point about how bad and vacuous the American media is. She was a conservative that really went in on Obama. She fucking didn't like any of that. Didn't like Obama. But then Trump came along and she realized that to stay sort of culturally relevant and to sort of like go with the flow of the newsroom, she became vehemently anti-Trump. And now she spends her entire time basically peddling DNC propaganda. But she also doesn't just do that. She's so fundamentally stupid and divorced from reality. I call her the queen of brainworms. She literally is. Nobody else has brainworms from social media and American politics like her. It's unbelievable. And so I saw somebody highlight this, one of the accounts that I follow. It's just too perfect. She's just too good. The Vatican press office came out and said, listen, we want peace. We're very concerned about this war in Ukraine. And like, obviously that doesn't happen. The Pope doesn't usually interfere in this stuff, and, you know, the church in Russia and all of that stuff. Jennifer decided to say, as empty gestures go, impressive. But you see the beauty of it, the reason she will always be the queen of brainworms. Her name, her very name on Twitter is, she changed it to Jennifer I Stand With Ukraine Rubin. You see, in the ultimate empty gesture, in your Twitter name. But no, the Pope saying, listen, we've got concerns. Empty gesture. You doing that, not empty gesture. It's a powerful statement by a powerful woman in the American media landscape. She's too fucking good. Oh, my God. It's like crack cocaine to me. Give me more. Give me more. Like, it's, oh, she's had so many bad takes lately as well. She's actually insane. Her brainworms are mental. Like, please. Never follow her for the news, but for her unbelievable flip-flopping and contradictory takes. I'm actually pretty sure as well, because I'm pretty sure she came out with something absolutely outrageous just today as well on top of that. You know. Oh, by the way, back when we were doing Biden's 9 out of 10 bullshit, can I just throw this in from the fucking Palmer report? If you can look at this and not vomit, fair fucking play to you. President Biden. Oh, this hurt me. This hurt me. You thought the Star Wars one was bad? This hurt me. President Biden has brought back the economy. He's vaccinated the nation. He's expanded our infrastructure. Is in the process of saving us from World War III and may take down Vladimir Putin. That alone puts Biden on Mount Rushmore. That's tough. It's tough to read. We'll move on. While we're talking about queens with brainworms, I think you'll like this. Kim Iverson. A lot of people, funnily enough, in my community were like, oh my God, I'm so sad to see Kim say this. I never really rated her as like some sort of great thinker or whatever. I understand, you know, some people like a podcast or whatever, but like, never did it for me. Not for me. But hopefully this is just discounted and now from ever having an opinion on anything else. We've even got LeBron in the replies. Ukraine shouldn't fight back. No one should. Let it go. You're just being invaded by a tyrannical ground force that's going to fucking occupy. He's going to overthrow your government and occupy your country. Just let it go. Just let it. No one should fight that, dude. Just let it go. Be the bigger man. Walk away. Actually insane. And then she followed it up because, like you can see, she's getting LeBron'd. You're getting LeBron'd. That's like L, you fell off, ratio. That's like all of them wrapped up in one GIF. That's really hard to take. And it says, if Ukraine fights back, it will be devastating and the outcome won't be any different. They can't fight Russia. No one can. Best to let it go for now and use democracy in future. Don't kill yourselves. Seriously? Yeah, that democracy is going to really work out. That's the long game. What you do, everyone in the Ukraine just leaves the country like it's some fucked up surprise birthday party. Everyone leaves. Russia roll in, right? There's no one there. They go, oh, fucking hell. This is weird. Meanwhile, everyone in Ukraine has all gone to neighboring countries and we just sit and wait. And it'll all work out. 10 years from now, we'll all be like, can the Ukrainians come back? And it'll all be okay. Yeah. Nailed it. Nailed it. Geopolitics. Perfect. Unbelievable scenes. Stephen King, obviously from the last stream, ill. He's ill, isn't he? He's fucking so ill. It's mad, right? This is a guy, by the way. I don't get the moral posturing by him. He said some outrageous shit, by the way. I don't even know if I can say it on Twitch in the past, you know? And it's like, listen, you accept it's fiction, but there's some weird stuff there. There's some, yeah. That's all I'm saying. Like, again, another guy was normal, didn't really comment on politics, just wrote his books, had that car crash, didn't he? Had that near-death experience, which is kind of weird because he'd written a book prior to it with Misery, which was a metaphor for his cocaine addiction, which, by the way, yeah, massive cokehead, which also, cool, respect it. But, yeah, anyway, American politics has broken Stephen King's brain. So he was popping off on the last stream. He retweeted this. He's fully in on this idea, right? Like, look at Stephen King retweet there. I want Donnie back. This guy Joe won't do what I say. But you didn't invade. But Stephen, that doesn't even make sense. One thing I usually don't do at the end of this is I usually don't go after the regular folks. A terrible take from a pleb is sort of expected, isn't it? You know, they're just people on Twitter just trying to do their thing. But I saw a couple. I can't ignore them. I won't ignore them. I simply won't. I said, you will have seen influencers and all this, like, use this for clout. This is tough. It's really tough to watch. And no, I won't play Hassan clips. I will not. It just invites more trouble than it's worth. And listen, you know, me and him, last time we did a Trainwrecks podcast, we were in agreement about George Bush. There's good in him. I can sense it. It's just the clout machines took over his brain right now. That's fine. So, I could. Right, listen. Oh, where to begin with this? So, no, listen, we're going to do it. I think we need to spend 2 minutes on it at least. Let's just go back to Big Head because Stephen King's hurting my feelings. Bitcoin, okay, Bitcoin did well, didn't it? I need to sort of set the table and explain the... So Bitcoin had that thing where it was a meme and like people bought it and everyone was like hodl and it was all, and then it blew up and it went up to like 80,000 a coin and loads of people became like virtual millionaires off it, and then they set off this whole cryptard thing, as I call it, assuming that doesn't get me banned off Twitch, in which case you didn't hear it. But, you know, which is where there was loads of people who suddenly, they changed their bio, didn't they, to crypto enthusiasts, which, by the way, red flag if ever I've seen one. I don't want to hear your opinion ever again. That's it. Now, I'm not saying crypto's, like, not a thing. Like, yeah, you might have made some money. That's fine. But, like, I could make money selling fucking homeopathy, right? Like, it's a scam. And it's fine. You know, do you. If you can live with it, that's fine. Whatever. You know. But I never got on board the crypto train. I'm glad I didn't. I certainly didn't get on board the NFT train. I'm very glad I didn't do that. But what started happening was, because there were a number of people who were like, yeah, bro, it's fucking legitimate, bro. Bro, yeah, I'm into crypto because I'm a crypto bro. I'm a crypto bro. Bored ape, bro. You got a bored ape, bro? You got a bored ape, bro? It's just like these morons, right? Because a few of them got like wealthy off the back of it by scamming the next idiot that came along. What started happening there was they suddenly started presenting themselves as like gurus and like world leaders in thought. I'm the guy that saw Bitcoin going up to 80%. I was holding when no one else was holding, bro. So I'm the guy, bro. I'm going to tell you about systems, bro. Future, bro. Metaverse, bro. And it's like, holy fucking shit. You're the same moron. You're just a moron who was in the right place, right time to take advantage of other morons. It's like your opinions aren't worth listening to. But unfortunately, every time you criticize crypto, there's always someone like that. Just it's unbelievable that they cannot handle like how transparently garbage this shit is. And then so they're the ones at the extreme end. In the middle, you have people who go, yeah, but what about blockchain technology and all of its useful applications? And you go, yeah, I admit there could be something there. And then they say something that absolutely blockchain should never be used for. Like they say something like, imagine it, all of your medical... Nope, stop right there. Stop. I don't want that. I don't want verifiable, traceable... You know what I mean? They're idiots. The 99.9% of anyone who's involved in crypto is a fucking moron. And they know nothing about anything. And they try and tell everyone who says, I can see that the emperor has no clothes, that actually, you're a boomer, you don't even get it, man. No, I do get it. I do get it. I've seen pump and dumps. You call them rug pulls, I guess, now. I've seen technology, like everyone told you it's going to be revolutionary. It wasn't, and people are stuck with it. We were doing that with cars. So it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's what you have to do to justify your empty life. I get it. Have it. Fill your life as you need to fill it, but you will not fool me. And you can call me a boomer. I will be right on this. I am right on this. I'm 100% right on this. But anyway, the problem, unfortunately... by the way, you're right on this, and don't let them bully you into buying a fucking JPEG of a monkey and pretending it's all fine. It's not. It's just garbage. Anyway, unfortunately, because some people made some money, they set themselves up as thought leaders. And I just want to show you one example. This video is unbelievably bad. I want to see if I can get the thumbnail, actually, because I want to see if he changed.
I stand with Russia.
Yeah, I know that. Okay, 1 second. His thumbnail is him with blood on his hands, pouring through his fingers in the thumbnail. But anyway, this is called Tech Lead Show. A man who ultimately is just a clout-seeking loser whose entire video output is basically about all the money he made, how he's a billionaire, how he's a thought leader. They're all a similar thing. Anyway, he has decided he's going to explain to us why he stands with Russia and why, by extension, we all should. And let's have a look at his incredible geopolitical analysis. It's actually very deep.
I stand with Russia. Am I allowed to say that out here, or is somebody going to cancel me if I express some political view that is contrary to the public narrative? War is propaganda. Propaganda is the most important weapon out there, so it depends which side have you been brainwashed to believe, or are we all going to just simply assume that Russia's the bad guy, right? That's the popular narrative around here. And so this is what doesn't quite sit well with me, which is that most people out here have absolutely no clue what Russia and Ukraine are even fighting about, right? You've got Ukraine crying, and have you ever been in an argument with somebody who's crying? You can't win because people are...
Right, now, listen, this guy's a thought leader. Ukraine are crying, and have you ever been in an argument with someone who's crying? Oh, no, yeah, I have. Yeah, it sucks. Tell me more.
Are just saying, oh, look, that person's crying. Why are you so mean? Why do you have to be a bully? That person's crying. As if simply by having somebody crying for help, that they're automatically the victim. Now, maybe, yes, Ukraine may be the victim, but let's take a look at what happened. I put out this tweet here where I said Ukraine may deserve to fail because they banned men ages 18 to 60 from leaving the country for suspending their bank withdrawals to try to protect their own currency from a bank run and from collapsing. And I believe that in many ways, the blood is now on the hands of the Ukrainian government because people want to leave. They're trying to get out of the entire region, and Ukraine is saying, you sit here and you fight for me. You try to save me. They're trying to get out, escape, and just seek a better future for themselves, a better life, and yet their own government is trapping them. They're escaping from their own government as much as from the Russian government.
500,000 people from the Ukraine are now in Poland, by the way, just as a FYI.
And you know, Abraham Lincoln here said that those who deny freedom for others deserve it not for themselves.
What would Abraham Lincoln know about fighting a war? It's too much. It's too fucking much. What would Abraham Lincoln know about fighting a war to save the soul of a nation that was divided, to preserve independence? What would he know? What would Lincoln know about any of that? Oh, fuck me. We'll go a little bit longer. It's tough.
Quick pause. This video is brought to you by my people must fight for their...
This video is brought to you by me. Hang on, this is what he said.
Right? Some are pro-Russia, some are pro-Western. Most people just want a better life. And they're not necessarily going to let their own political beliefs get in the way of a better life for them. They just want a nice life. And so if a company in Russia were to offer them maybe double the income, double the salary, well, then they would migrate over to Russia. And if their life is better in Ukraine, maybe they'll stay there. And then there's some hardcore nationalists on either side who are going to just stay in the country and fight to their death for it. But most people aren't necessarily going to be like that. And so when you're out there virtue signaling, saying that I'm wrong, that I'm a terrible person, and that Ukrainian people must fight for their independence, and yet you're sitting there. You yourself, you're not willing to fight physically. You'd rather live a better life, right? That's worth more than independence of Ukraine for you. So if you really care, why don't you put on some boots and go over to Ukraine, pick up a gun, and fight for Ukrainian governments?
So, to be clear, his point is, you aren't willing to defend your country because you just want a better life for yourself. So if you are willing to defend your country, the situation the Ukrainians are in, the only way to prove it is to go to Ukraine and fight for their country. That way, you will prove at least, I believe in crypt bro circles, tech bros, proof of concept. Nailed it, of course, nailed it. Now, I haven't had time to watch this, but again, because he is a shameless scumbag who bizarrely is looked up to by his adoring audience, and he will use anything for clout. His new video, as of today, is entitled Surrender Ukraine.
I think Ukraine should surrender. Yeah, I think they should surrender. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this statement and say, how can you be such a coward? This is such a weak thing to do. This is not right. And they're going to say that I'm an idiot, and they're just going to not watch this video. But when we think about how do we maximize the number of lives saved? How do we minimize the number of deaths?
Crypto.
If life is more important than politics, then just surrender. We stop all bloodshed immediately. Nobody has to die.
Apart from all the people that are then captured, put in internment camps, all the people that are expelled from the country under the new rules, perhaps even the new government decides to go on a path of ethnic cleansing, because remember, Ukrainians and Russians are sort of diverse in that way. But fine, you figured it out. He's nailed it. My bad. I've never bought crypto, so I'm the idiot. I'm a boomer and an idiot, and he's figured it all out. Right, anyway, that wasn't where I was going with this, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Absolutely outrageously bad. This is the type of stuff, by the way. Do I even want to read the comments? Am I reading the comments? Let's not read the comments. That's going to hurt me. To be fair, there's a comment there. Please stop talking about geopolitics and history. You're making a fool of yourself. Not bad. Good job. Good job. Think critically. Anyway, listen, look, the real thing is, like, you know, we've all got to rally round and do our bit, haven't we? We've all, you know, that's the thing about war. We all have to get together, do our bit to contribute. And I just want to say, this touched my heart. It was definitely my heart. You see, as an effort to help people in Ukraine during the Ukraine invasion, I'll be having a sale on my OnlyFans at 50% off, praying for Ukraine. So, and listen, I was proud to contribute in more ways than one, because, you know, yeah, every little helps. Every little helps. Also, to get serious for a moment at the end, we should really think about people that might be negatively impacted about this, that perhaps we wouldn't originally, you know, conceptualize, right? You know, there's a lot going on right now, is all I'm saying. Empaths and astrologists, they've been all over this, and it's fascinating. You know, for example, I didn't realize this, but Putin has transiting Saturn opposing his natal Pluto all year, which can be very destructive. In many ways now, it all makes sense. You see, I thought it was about NATO, but it was really about Pluto. So, you know, you live and you learn. You do live and you learn. But also, it's not just her. She's not just some random kook. You can see here as well. As I can feel, there will be a high mortality rate in the Ukraine. Oh, God, that's tragic. Why? Russia is Scorpio rising, which makes the country powerful, while Ukraine is Cancer rising. So things will always happen according to the divine plan, and you just can't change it. You just can't. It's just how it is. When a Scorpio rising power goes to war with a fucking Cancer rising power, what are you going to do? It's just facts. You just got to live with that, you know. The witches have been out. You know, the witches were out for Trump, weren't they? So we've had the witches. To those trying to hex Putin, don't. This was, of course, on TikTok, where nothing good happens. Look at the days he's invaded before. 8th of the 8th month, 2008, and now 22nd of the 2nd month, 2022. Also during Pluto returns. If you think this man isn't heavily spiritually protected, you'd be sorely incorrect. Instead, please put your energy on not only protecting Ukraine, but ex-Soviet states. He knows enough about numerology and astrology. He's not the one to hex. It will 100% backfire on you, even through your protections. Instead of baneful energy, we should be putting positive protection energies on the people of the Ukraine. So, you know, just if you're watching this, and you are a witch, it is something to think about, is all I'm saying. We've got to just be alert during these times. Oh, this was just in today, because a lot of people in my circles did have some sympathy for Gina Carano. Remember, she was the actress in The Mandalorian, and she got kicked out, didn't she, by Disney, because she said, let's not dehumanize people during a pandemic. And then she used a picture of, like, I don't know, Auschwitz or something. And people lost their minds, and she lost the job, and everyone was like, oh, God, that's really sad. And then loads of people said cancel culture's not real. Look, she's gone from working with Disney to working with Ben Shapiro, as if that was in any way comparable. But, you know, listen, you can sympathize with people on occasion and still recognize they're fucking mental. By the way, after someone's been cancelled, they're never coming back to normality. It's such a mad experience that fucks up your mental. And so she decided she's figured out why the war happened. The moment they is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. The moment they lost control of the COVID narrative, cue a war, straight from one crisis to the next. A scripted reality show sacrificing innocent lives for unquenchable greed, endless power grabs, no accountability, devastated economies, never give up freedom for fear. Do worry about they in that sentence, but maybe try not to think about it too much. Hillary Clinton's been doing the rounds, increasing speculation that she's going to be having a run in 2024, so we can listen to our queen and savior. What's Hillary got to say about all of this? Perfect stuff, of course. She knows that the real people we need to go after are those who align themselves with Putin the whole time. Definitely not those that would have robbed an election from her or anything like that. Let's see.
We have to also make sure that within our own country, we are calling out those people who are giving aid and comfort to Vladimir Putin, who are talking about what a genius he is, what a smart move it is, who are unfortunately being broadcast by Russian media, not only inside Russia, but in Europe, to demonstrate the division within our own country.
It's all about America, guys. I keep telling you, and trust me, I keep having this terrible sense, maybe because, you know, my stars are sending in Pluto or something, I don't know, that Hillary Clinton's going to be definitely coming back to the political landscape in the not too distant future. We'll see how the midterms go. I guess midterms going to be underway, actually. I think they start technically this week. So there it is. I think that's everything. I think I've covered everything. There was a hilarious tweet I can't find about a fucking empath, about how the somebody said, think of the empaths during this war. I really wanted to find it. I mean, listen, you can just type the word empaths into your Twitter search and they're all out there. They're all out there. These people are real. But yes, that should bring you all up to speed with everything that's been going on in the Ukrainian crisis. And on a serious note, and where we'll end today, we will end on a serious note, and the serious note is serious this time. We're all hoping that the peace talks are going to work and pan out, and that there's going to be an end to this conflict, because earlier today, again, not long before I went live, we had more shelling on civilian targets, this time in Kharkiv. And this has also been confirmed as being real. You'll see it off in the distance. You know, these are... You know, these are sustained strikes on civilian targets at this point. The casualties that we're seeing, I think we're well past the 500 mark now. It's only going to keep going up until we can see this end. And it's fucking rough. The sanctions are about, you know, long-term goals and long-term pressure. In the short term, Ukrainian people are going to continue to die until we can stop what's happening one way or the other.